before the dinosaurs, before jungles or birdsong? What if there were cities buried in the dark? Could a lost civilization have risen and vanished before evolution began its climb? Is Antarctica's ice not just a veil of snow, but the tombstone of the first intelligence the Earth ever knew? There is a silence under Antarctica that feels too perfect. Not the kind of silence left by wind or snow, but the kind that follows a vanished voice. Deep beneath the ice lies something ancient, something that doesn't match any part of Earth's known past. Geologists call it a dead zone. Explorers call it unreachable. But satellite readings say otherwise. They show symmetrical patterns, heat where there should be cold, and structures too geometric to be natural. These signs hint at design, purpose, not random geology. Could this land, locked away by ice for millions of years, be hiding a chapter of Earth's history that predates not just civilization, but life itself? Antarctica may have once been green, warm, and full of flowing water. Science confirms this part. Fossils of ancient plants and trees prove that the continent was once lush. But what is not discussed openly is what else may have existed during that time. Some believe that while the rest of the Earth was still forming, Antarctica hosted something intelligent, not early humans, not animals, something other. Could this continent have been home to the very first civilization, one so old its ruins now rest beneath layers of ice older than bones? This question isn't just speculation. Strange anomalies continue to surface. Ice cores drilled deep into the crust reveal chemical signatures and isotopes that don't match natural patterns. In a few cores, traces of rare elements and artificial carbon clusters appear, materials associated with technology, not nature. Were these remnants of a forgotten age, or simply contamination? Why do those who raise these questions often lose funding or access? Who benefits from keeping these ideas quiet? Some explorers and scientists have whispered about findings that were quickly removed from public records. Photos of unnatural structures, metallic fragments, even what looked like doors etched with patterns resembling early symbols found across ancient cultures. The official reports called them optical illusions. But how many illusions does it take before we begin to wonder if we're being misled? Could the symmetrical ridges spotted by satellites actually be walls? Could the evenly spaced heat signatures beneath the surface be the last remnants of buried chambers, machines, or power systems? And if so, who built them? Mainstream science tells us complex life only emerged after hundreds of millions of years of random evolution. But what if that model is missing a chapter? What if intelligence didn't rise slowly from cells, but fell from a peak that existed long before the dinosaurs? Could we be the second rise of thought, not the first? Many ancient cultures spoke of beings that came from the sky or from deep below. The Sumerians called them the Anunnaki. Biblical texts mention the Nephilim. The Book of Enoch speaks of watchers. Were these myths actually distorted memories of a civilization that predated not just humanity, but biology itself? If such beings existed, is it possible they lived where no one thought to look, beneath the most hostile, frozen place on Earth? Some researchers believe that Antarctica was once the heart of a planetary network, a base of operations for a race of builders. The idea may sound extreme, but clues scattered across the globe seem to point back to the southern continent. Ancient structures aligned with magnetic patterns, pyramids that share impossible design features, and myths that describe a place of origin hidden in the coldest part of the world. Could all of these be echoes of a civilization erased by an extinction event we haven't yet discovered? Perhaps a war, or a planetary shift, or even an internal collapse? If such an event occurred before the dinosaurs ever roamed, would we even know what signs to look for? Or have we mistaken their ruins for natural formations, caves, ridges, mountains, because we were never told to question them? Antarctica's unique magnetic field has long puzzled scientists. Compass readings fluctuate. Aircraft sometimes lose navigation temporarily. These anomalies might be natural, but what if they aren't? What if the magnetic strangeness is a leftover effect from energy systems buried far below? Machines still running, long after their builders vanished. And why does the Antarctic Treaty prevent digging in certain areas? Why is it the only continent where no nation can claim ownership? Could it be because the land beneath the ice does not belong to any known civilization, past or present? Is the treaty about peace, or about containment? If there really was an intelligence that rose and fell before the age of animals, why has no trace of them been taught, studied, or preserved? Or is it being preserved, just not for the public? Could elite groups, secret institutions, or even governments be aware of what lies beneath the ice and choose silence? And if one day the ice melts, what would we see first? A doorway? A machine? A figure frozen in time? Would it change our religions, our science, our understanding of who we are? Or would we simply bury the truth again, out of fear of what it means? Maybe the ice is not just cold water. Maybe it is a memory, frozen, hidden, and waiting. If the Earth holds secrets from before life began, then Antarctica may be the key. And someone, or something, may have locked it for a reason. In the early 16th century, a map surfaced that should not exist. It was drawn in Constantinople by an Ottoman admiral named Pre-Dinosaur in the year 1513. At first glance, it looked like a typical navigational chart of the known world, but closer inspection revealed something deeply unsettling. The southern edge of the map appeared to show a landmass far beyond the tip of South America, a continent labeled Terra Australis. This landmass had detailed coastlines, river mouths, and mountain ranges, and it matched, almost perfectly, the subglacial contours of Antarctica, without ice. Modern scans of the continent beneath its ice sheets confirm this uncanny accuracy. But the technology to see beneath the ice did not exist until the 20th century. So how did a 16th century admiral map a land he had never seen in such precise detail, long before modern science knew what lay there? Was this a lucky guess? A copying error? Or something far stranger? The Pre-Dinosaur map was not an isolated document. Other old maps, like those by Orontius Phineas and Philippe Buache, also depict southern continents with a level of clarity that shouldn't have been possible for their time. What links them is that they all show Antarctica as if it were free of ice, revealing coastlines that have only recently been confirmed through satellite radar and seismic scans. Experts from the United States Air Force, who studied the Pre-Dinosaur map in the 1960s, concluded that the coastline shown could only be accurate if there had been no ice at all. Their report suggested that the original source maps, from which Pre-Dinosaur may have copied, were made before Antarctica froze over. That would mean someone had mapped the continent more than 6,000 years ago, or perhaps much further back. If so, who were these ancient cartographers? And what kind of tools did they use to measure land masses no one was supposed to know about? Pre-Dinosaur himself claimed in the map's surviving notes that he compiled his chart using 20 older maps. Some of them, he said, came from the time of Alexander the Great. Others may have been even older. But none of those source maps have survived. Only fragments remain, passed down through cultures who never claimed to have made them. Could these fragments be the last pieces of a once global knowledge system? One that kept memory of a world far different from ours? Mainstream historians argue that these maps were imaginative guesses, based on sailors' stories and early expeditions. But guesses do not produce mathematically precise coastlines. Guesses don't chart the curvature of the Earth with pre-modern accuracy. Could these early mapmakers have had access to a legacy of advanced geography passed down through lost civilizations, perhaps even from beings who once lived on Antarctica when it was warm and habitable? And if that's true, how far back does this hidden history go? Scientists agree that Antarctica has been covered in ice for millions of years. But some data suggests that parts of the continent may have been ice-free as recently as 12,000 years ago. That timeline overlaps with the end of the last ice age, and with sudden rises in sea levels and global climate change. Many ancient flood myths, from Mesopotamia to Mesoamerica, emerge from this same period. Could the source of those myths come from a real place that was swallowed by snow and forgotten by time? Could the lost continent on these old maps be the last recorded glimpse of that place before it disappeared? Some researchers believe these ancient maps were preserved in secret libraries, stored by religious orders, secret societies, or hidden schools of knowledge. When the Library of Alexandria burned, countless scrolls were lost. But what if some of those scrolls held records of a pre-Ice Age world? And what if a few surviving copies slipped quietly through the centuries, reappearing only as fragments in the work of Renaissance mapmakers? Why do so many of these maps surface around the same historical window, just before the world entered its age of exploration? And how did these early explorers even know where to sail unless they were following forgotten routes? If Antarctica was once known, who erased it? Who had the power and the motive to wipe an entire continent off our collective memory? The Peary race map continues to raise questions that history cannot comfortably answer. Its existence forces us to reconsider the timeline of exploration, of discovery, and of human memory. It is not just a map. It is a mirror. A clue left behind by someone or something that knew more than they should have, at a time we are told they could not have. And yet, the map exists. It is drawn on gazelle skin. It has been studied, scanned, verified. Its coastline measurements align within degrees of modern instruments. And still, it is treated as a mystery, a footnote, rather than a red flag pointing to a much larger truth. What if the Peary race map is not the outlier, but the key? A key to a civilization that mastered navigation, geography, and long-distance planning in an age we call primitive. What if it was drawn by those who had already circled the globe once before and vanished before we arrived to do it again? If so, then Antarctica may not have been discovered in the modern era. It may have been remembered. When satellite images first captured the Ellsworth Mountains region of Antarctica, researchers expected to find jagged peaks and snow-covered ridges. But in one section near the Pensacola Mountains, something didn't fit. Among the irregular chaos of glacial folds, a near-perfect triangular structure appeared. Its sides were even, its slopes steady, and its angles measured with uncanny precision. At first, it was dismissed as a coincidence of nature. Ice and wind can carve strange shapes. But then a second formation emerged. And then a third, each aligned, each geometric, each echoing the mathematical form of a pyramid. The idea of a pyramid in Antarctica sent shockwaves through the fringe and silence through the mainstream. Some called it a mountain with a rare symmetry. Others suggested it was just another trick of light and shadow. But further satellite scans confirmed that these shapes held proportions rarely found in nature. The angle of the slopes matched closely with the Great Pyramid of Giza. Their bases were buried deep under ice, but thermal readings suggested they were hollow in parts. Could these be structures? Ancient, massive, and long forgotten. If so, who built them, and how did they get here? Mainstream geologists insist these are nunataks, exposed peaks of submerged mountains. But nunataks are usually rugged, jagged, broken by time. These shapes were smooth, deliberate, symmetrical. Could we really be looking at the buried remnants of a civilization that predated not only humans, but known history? And if so, what kind of intelligence designed them with such care? Some theorists believe these are not natural peaks at all, but the tops of artificial structures, buildings or power stations encased by time. Could they be the last visible tips of a much larger buried city? A city whose grid, walls, and corridors now lie beneath layers of compressed snow and forgotten ice? Military satellites have picked up more than just visible geometry. Some scans recorded brief electromagnetic pulses coming from beneath these formations, pulses that seem patterned, not random. Could there still be machinery, buried deep below, sending signals into silence? Or are we mistaking geological interference for something far older and smarter? If these pyramids are artificial, their survival under the ice for thousands, or even millions, of years suggests advanced materials. Stone wouldn't last under the pressure of glacial movement. Metal would corrode. So, what were they made of? Could an ancient race have mastered materials that resist both time and nature? And if so, why build pyramids here, at the coldest, most remote place on Earth? Some suggest the answer lies in the Earth's shifting crust. A theory called crustal displacement proposes that Antarctica was once much further north, perhaps in a temperate zone. If that were true, then these structures may have once stood in warm sunlight, not endless winter. Could the sudden shift of the planet's skin have buried them under a cataclysmic freeze? Could this be the real origin of the flood myths that appear in every major culture? A disaster so large, it moved oceans, drowned lands, and froze entire civilizations in place. And if such an event happened, what might still lie preserved beneath the layers? Perhaps not just buildings, but records. Perhaps not just records, but bodies. Researchers have noted that the supposed pyramid alignments mirror some of the patterns found in Giza and Teotihuacan. Why would the same design principles appear across continents that were supposedly never in contact? Is this convergence by accident, or by a shared knowledge lost to time? Could Antarctica be the origin point of that knowledge? The geometry of the structures also raises new questions. Ancient builders around the world used sacred geometry, shapes and ratios believed to channel energy or reflect cosmic principles. The Antarctic formations appear to follow these same rules. Could they have been part of a global network of energy points, like nodes on a planetary grid? If so, did they serve a spiritual function or something more scientific? Were these pyramids generators, observatories, or something else entirely? Some theories propose they were placed to stabilize Earth's magnetic field or connect with other sites through ley lines, those invisible paths of energy that ancient cultures seem to recognize and build along. But if that's true, then why was this knowledge forgotten, or was it hidden? Modern governments have imposed strict limits on exploration in Antarctica. Zones where these shapes exist are heavily restricted. Satellite data is selectively released. Researchers who push too far lose access. Why such secrecy? If it's all just ice and rock, why the need for silence? Could it be that someone already knows what's buried there and wants to keep it buried? If we truly are seeing the tips of buried structures, then Antarctica may not just hold secrets of Earth's past, but also its design, a place not just of survival, but of blueprint. Not myth, but memory. If the ice were to vanish overnight, would we find an ancient city perfectly preserved? Would we walk through chambers that echo with a language we've forgotten? Would we discover that the first architects of this world were not from any place we recognize? Maybe they were the first version of us, or maybe they were something else entirely. Either way, the shapes remain, cold, still, and waiting. The word Antarctica brings to mind only one thing: ice. Endless, cold, frozen wind. A place where no tree grows and no insect hums. But what if this image is wrong? Just a recent snapshot of something much older and much greener. Deep in the soil below the glaciers, scientists have found fossils of ancient plants, ferns, palms, and even temperate forest trees. Pollen samples and imprints of leaves show that, at one point, Antarctica was warm enough to support lush vegetation, flowing rivers, and thriving ecosystems. This wasn't just a summer thaw, it was an entire age, stretching across millions of years, where Antarctica may have looked more like parts of modern-day New Zealand or the Pacific Northwest. The evidence is clear. The frozen continent we see today was once alive, but what the evidence doesn't explain is this: if the land was green and thriving, was it also occupied? Could intelligent life have existed there, building cities, forming cultures, and recording knowledge during that warm age? Mainstream science says Antarctica's last major warm period ended at least 34 million years ago, when a sharp global cooling event began. But certain geological layers suggest smaller warm pulses happened much later. One such warm phase, known as the Eocene epoch, brought dense forests and even freshwater lakes. Fossils of amphibians and flightless birds have been discovered under the ice, raising another question. Were these animals alone in their domain, or did they share the land with something far more advanced? Some ancient maps, like those discussed earlier, show detailed coastlines beneath the ice, as if recorded when the land was free and visible. But who was around to draw such maps? And why were those coastlines so precise? Could it be that a civilization existed during this warm phase and documented the land before it vanished? If cities were built here, where did they go? Ice does not just fall like a blanket. It crushes, shifts, and erases. But before the freeze, there would have been time, possibly thousands of years, to grow, build, and move. Could ruins still remain, sealed under rock and permafrost, too deep for modern equipment to reach without suspicion? If ancient life thrived here, it might also explain why some ancient myths reference a southern land of origin, a place of beauty, purity, and sudden loss. In Hindu texts, in Greek stories, even in Aboriginal memory, there are references to a sunken or hidden land at the edge of the world. Were these echoes of Antarctica's warm age passed down through distant travelers or survivors? And if so, who were they? Some researchers believe the loss of this warm age was not entirely natural. Earth's climate systems are complex, but not random. Could a sudden freeze have been triggered by an external event, an impact, a polar shift, or even a self-inflicted disaster by those who lived there? If a technologically advanced culture once flourished on this continent, could they have altered weather patterns or drained natural systems, bringing about their own end? If their fall was fast, it may explain the absence of visible ruins, swallowed by ice before they could escape or leave behind a record. But that hasn't stopped speculation. Heat mapping surveys in certain sectors have revealed unusual thermal patterns below the ice, areas that seem too warm for their surroundings. Some believe These are geothermal hotspots. Others think they may be remnants of ancient infrastructure, still giving off heat after millennia. Is it possible that deep beneath the cold, entire habitats still exist, sealed, preserved, and untouched by time? Skeptics argue that no signs of artificial construction have ever been publicly verified. But then again, access to Antarctica is tightly controlled. The Antarctic Treaty strictly limits exploration, especially in certain geologically active zones. Why protect frozen mountains from casual study? Why do certain regions require military clearance to enter? Could something be hidden that challenges everything we think we know about early Earth? Even some mainstream archaeologists now admit that human history may extend further back than once believed. Göbekli Tepe, in modern-day Turkey, is at least 12,000 years old, twice the age of the pyramids. Its discovery rewrote what scholars thought was possible. If such complexity existed in the Middle East that early, what else might lie further south, frozen and waiting? What if Antarctica was not just green, but also gold-lit by cities, watchtowers, and sacred sites built by a people who knew the Earth in ways we've forgotten? Did they leave behind messages buried in rock layers, or symbols etched into minerals now hidden under miles of ice? Could Antarctica be the origin point, not just for lost knowledge, but for lost memory? A land that carried our first stories, first experiments, and first warnings. If life rose once before in this hidden continent, what caused its silence? And if we uncover that silence now, do we risk repeating its mistakes? The fossils show us a forest. The climate tells us there was warmth, but beneath those clues might lie the oldest footprints on the planet. Still there, only buried, not gone, just waiting. Some stories don't survive in books or stone, they hide in ice. Scientists pulling core samples from Antarctica expected climate data and frozen air pockets. Instead, they found a chemical fingerprint no textbook had prepared them for. At nearly 2 miles beneath the surface, in a layer tied to the end of the last ice age, strange elements appeared: iridium, platinum, and carbon structures that didn't belong. These weren't scattered traces, but dense spikes, like a signature stamped into time. The immediate theory blamed a meteor strike, but isotope ratios didn't match known cosmic impacts. The materials looked refined, filtered, as if engineered. Was this the aftermath of something made, not fallen? The carbon signatures revealed a troubling pattern. They had been burned at intense, sustained temperatures and under pressure conditions seen only in industrial settings. This wasn't wild forest fire residue. It matched modern combustion byproducts, materials created by engines, reactors, or even factories. But who ran reactors 12,000 years ago? Who even knew how? That layer of the ice was supposed to belong to primitive hunter-gatherers, not precision chemistry. So, what kind of event could have released engineered carbon and rare metals into the upper atmosphere at a global scale? The data didn't stop at Antarctica. Similar chemical anomalies were discovered in Greenland and deep mountain glaciers in Asia. A global layer of strange matter, as if the planet had been dusted by a sudden, intelligent catastrophe. Was it a natural disaster, or the last breath of a civilization that tried to stop one? Some climatologists quietly proposed an unknown industrial event. Others went silent. Satellite reviews of the ice sheets that followed revealed geothermal anomalies, strange pockets of lingering heat far beneath the expected range. Could machinery have once operated beneath this land? Could power systems still be releasing warmth long after their creators vanished? If this was a city, it wasn't made of wood, and stone. The ice records whisper of pressure-forged metals and synthetic molecules, things we still struggle to manufacture today. Could that suggest an energy source far beyond fossil fuel, and a knowledge of chemistry far ahead of its time? Some researchers, working off the record, describe these signatures as resembling nano-carbon chains. In other words, engineered materials built at the molecular level. How does something like that get frozen under miles of ice dated to a time before human civilization? Unless the timeline itself is wrong, or the builders were not human. Theories quickly appeared, as they always do when anomalies disrupt official stories. Some suggested ancient survivors of an advanced pre-Ice Age society. Others whispered the word Anunnaki, pointing to legends of sky beings and watchers who once walked among early life. If such entities existed, could their machines have been buried during a pole shift or global freeze? And if they operated systems from beneath the surface, what kind of power did they harness? Ancient myths across cultures speak of fire from the heavens, great floods, and cities swallowed by cold or sea. Are these metaphors? Or scattered memories of real destruction? Could the same beings who built pyramids or sacred mountains have used Antarctica as their command center, protected by isolation and later hidden by climate disaster? One theory ties the strange carbon spike to the Younger Dryas, a sudden cold snap that halted Earth's warming and triggered global upheaval. Was it caused by a comet or a failed machine? Was someone trying to correct Earth's climate manually and lost control? Or did a reactor buried beneath the crust finally collapse, leaving behind nothing but ash and isotope trails? If you were trying to erase history, melting it beneath glacial time is a smart choice. But ice doesn't forget. Its layers preserve every fire, every burn, every signal from the sky. And the deeper the core samples go, the weirder the data gets. One scientist, speaking anonymously, claimed to see micro-etchings on fragments recovered from deep core ice, marks too regular to be natural. Could those have been symbols, warnings, instructions? Or were they remnants of a forgotten language built into a tool no longer understood? Institutions around the world maintain strict controls on Antarctic drilling locations. Permissions are delayed. Results are redacted. Funding disappears. If this were simply ancient soot, why the secrecy? Who benefits from keeping certain ice core findings locked away? Is there something buried not just under miles of ice, but under layers of policy and fear? We're told to look at history in a straight line, primitive to advanced, cave to code. But what if that line bent? What if we're living in the second cycle of technology, and the first ended in frost? Could those rare particles be the last breath of machines too complex to survive disaster, or too dangerous to remember? If we keep drilling, will we find more than carbon and dust? Will we find broken fragments of tools, circuits, or worse, something still alive, sealed in silence? The ice won't lie. It records everything, even the parts we're not ready to hear. Beneath Antarctica's ice, something lives that shouldn't. In recent decades, core samples taken from the deepest lakes beneath the glacier, such as Lake Vostok, have revealed strange microbial life. Some bacteria retrieved from the icy depths have no known genetic match to anything else on Earth. They don't fit into existing evolutionary branches. Some share less than 90% of their DNA with any cataloged species, far below the threshold of natural relation. When first discovered, researchers called them anomalies. Lab contamination was ruled out. The samples were sealed, frozen, sterile. So, the next explanation was that these were ancient, frozen in a pocket of prehistoric time, But that answer only deepened the mystery. The structure of these organisms showed complex features, ones that hinted at adaptation, precision, and control. Certain proteins within their sequences looked designed, not by randomness or survival pressure, but by calculation. Could these bacteria be the leftover work of a civilization that once lived beneath the ice? Some scientists quietly asked the unthinkable. Were we looking at examples of ancient genetic engineering? The shapes of their DNA strands include markers that seem isolated, almost like spliced fragments. In modern genetics, this kind of cut and insert design is used to modify traits, enhance survival, or even store information. Could someone, or something, have been doing this before humans even existed? The idea sounds like science fiction, but even mainstream journals admitted the sequences were highly unusual and unlike any found in typical microbial evolution. Some researchers suggested that the organisms may have evolved in isolation for millions of years, deep beneath the ice. But others noticed something more troubling. Parts of the microbial genome resembled artificial constructs, sequences that looked functional but had no evolutionary reason to exist. In synthetic biology today, we sometimes build such segments to test reactions. Could these Antarctic microbes be living test subjects from a forgotten lab? And if so, who ran the experiment? When studied under microscopes, some of the organisms revealed a resistance to radiation. But in this case, their tolerance wasn't just high, it was perfect. The kind of design you'd expect from something built to survive a planetary reset. Could these microbes have been bioengineered as part of a survival protocol? Were they seeded to outlast the ice and then reboot life once the conditions returned? Or were they tools used in building, transforming, or sustaining something larger? Some theorists point to myths about the clay of life, the breath into dust, and the genetic creation of early beings. Could these not be symbolic tales, but corrupted memories of real experiments performed in the deep past? And if Antarctica once held a laboratory, not of steel and wires but of stone, energy, and biology, what kind of intelligence ran it? Certain genetic markers in these bacteria include repetitive strands that seem to echo known viral delivery systems. In other words, some microbes may have been carriers, modified to spread traits or data. Could DNA have been used to store information long before silicon? Modern scientists are now exploring the use of DNA as hard drives. So it's not a leap to wonder if the same idea was discovered earlier by another species. Could some of these buried bacteria contain more than biological traits? Could they hold blueprints, maps, or warnings encoded in the very twists of their structure? And if one day they thaw and awaken, what message might they carry? Lake Vostok remains under tight scientific control. Not all data has been released. Russian researchers have guarded certain findings, and international access has been limited. Why the secrecy? Why the delay in publishing full genetic sequences? And why do the same bacterial anomalies appear in other locations where subglacial lakes have been tapped, yet are labeled differently, as if to confuse the trail? Is someone trying to manage the narrative before it gets out of control? One leak suggested that microbial traces recovered from another lake included sequences strikingly similar to gene-editing enzymes used in CRISPR technologies, something supposedly invented only in the last few decades. Could that be a coincidence? Or are we rediscovering tools left behind by something older? And if the tool is biological, not mechanical, then maybe the greatest machines buried under Antarctica aren't made of metal. Maybe they're alive. Maybe they evolve, adapt, and learn. If life was seeded or shaped here, does that make this place Earth's cradle or its testing ground? The ice preserves these forms perfectly. Their membranes are intact, their cores stable, their potential dormant but untouched. They have waited in silence for thousands, perhaps millions, of years. What happens when we thaw them all? The deeper question lingers. Are we studying ancient microbes, or are they studying us? And if these bacteria are not natural, then their makers are not a mystery. They are a memory, written into the smallest forms, still alive and still watching. Carved deep into the face of an Antarctic cliff, where snow barely clings to the rock, is a clean line, too straight, too smooth, too deliberate. At first glance, it could be mistaken for a fault in the stone, the result of glacial pressure or shifting plates. But when surveyed at close range, it tells a different story. The cut runs perpendicular to the natural grain. It ends in a perfect right angle. Beside it, on another exposed slab, is a notch, uniform in depth, with edges sharper than erosion would allow. Nearby are grooves that resemble chisel marks. But no known tool could have made them, not in stone this hard, and not in a place untouched by civilization. These features were first spotted during a late 20th century geological survey near the Shackleton Range. Most were logged quietly, marked as unusual geomorphology. But whispers among the research teams spoke of quarry-like precision, of man-made shapes in a place where no man was thought to have ever lived. Could someone have worked this rock millions of years ago? And if so, how did they do it? Earth's geological record suggests that much of Antarctica has been locked in ice for over 30 million years. So any sign of quarrying, tool use, or structural work would mean that something intelligent existed long before the timeline allows. When stone shows straight edges and symmetrical cuts, we usually think of ancient builders, Egyptians, Mesoamericans, or the mysterious stonemasons of Pumapunku. But this is Antarctica. No ruins stand here. No statues remain. Just wind, ice, and exposed cliff faces with signs no glacier should leave behind. One particular outcrop features a sheer wall that appears smoothed, not by time, but by grinding. Its surface bears microscopic striations that suggest pressure polishing. These are not random abrasions. They run parallel, evenly spaced, like tool paths. And below them, in the ice melt during the brief summer sun, fragments of an unknown black residue were collected. Lab tests showed traces of metal composite, unlike anything native to the region. Could this be tool residue, or discarded debris from an ancient construction site? The cuts in the rock aren't isolated. Thermal imaging from satellite passes revealed more cliff faces, with strange shadows, long horizontal trenches, even what appeared to be platforms. Some theorists believe these were foundation points for structures now long buried. Could we be looking at the stone skeleton of a pre-dinosaur city? And if so, who carved it? And why so deep into the southern pole? The right angles and precision forms echo techniques seen in megalithic sites around the world. In Peru, Egypt, and Turkey, massive stones were shaped with surgical precision. Scholars debate the tools used: copper chisels, pounding stones, or even unknown technology. But in Antarctica, the presence of these forms without any tools left behind pushes the question further. What kind of device could cut through bedrock so cleanly and survive a continent's transformation into ice? Could this be the work of sonic tools, vibration-based carving, or heat-based stone-shaping methods long forgotten? And if such tools once existed, who wielded them? Were they human ancestors, or a separate species entirely? One adapted to the Earth's earlier climate cycles. Some point to the Precambrian anomalies, unexplained fossils, tracks in ancient stone, and metallurgic formations that suggest knowledge beyond primitive life. Could the Antarctic cliffs be the final missing piece? An untouched canvas of history before the reset? There's another detail few mention publicly. Some cuts align with solar paths, not today's sun angles, but the sun's position tens of thousands of years ago. Could that mean the structures or quarries were laid out according to celestial plans, much like other ancient sacred sites? Were these markings part of a larger map, an alignment grid that once stretched across the globe? If Antarctica was once the spiritual or scientific hub of an ancient civilization, could these cuts be the base of observatories, temples, or energy nodes? Or were they industrial, places to harvest material for something larger, something still hidden under the ice? Some researchers have proposed that strange magnetic pulses detected near these cliffs could indicate buried alloy frameworks, rebar-like reinforcements, now frozen in time. But every attempt to drill closer has been blocked by environmental restrictions. Are these really for protection or preservation of a secret? Could governments know more about these formations than they admit? Why is it that detailed maps of these outcrops are classified or incomplete? Could someone be preventing us from connecting the dots? When the ice eventually melts, or when technology permits deeper scanning, we may find that the bare rock of Antarctica holds more than just evidence of ancient climate. It may hold proof that stone was shaped, lifted, and placed long before we were taught anyone had the means to do so. And if these tools left marks here, they may have left more, tools themselves, or the remains of those who used them. Somewhere beneath the frozen cliffs, a workshop may still lie undisturbed, waiting, not of Stone Age hunters, but of engineers who understood Earth not as a home, but as a project. Are we walking atop their ruins or their blueprint? And if they left us a message in stone, have we already missed it? In a corner of Antarctica, where no flags wave and no buildings rise, something stood, tall, hidden, and long forgotten. It began with a seismic survey meant to map the subglacial bedrock, part of an international geological project. But what the sensors detected was not just ordinary terrain. Deep below the surface, arranged in a near-perfect grid, were vertical objects, dozens of them, spaced evenly and reaching hundreds of meters in height. They weren't part of the natural rock. Their density was different, their reflections sharper. Each structure sent back signals that suggested something solid, upright, and uniform. Not ice, not stone, something else. The data confused the geologists. Natural formations don't arrange themselves into squares. They don't stand upright in rows like massive architectural supports. At first, the readings were dismissed as glitches, false echoes caused by ice lensing or seismic noise. But follow-up scans confirmed the pattern. Something pillar-like was beneath the ice, and it was massive. Could these vertical anomalies be ancient structural columns, supports for a building, a dome, or even a platform that once towered above the polar landscape? If so, who built it, and when? Radar imaging couldn't penetrate far enough to resolve detail, but cross-comparisons with older satellite magnetometry showed subtle magnetic interference aligned with the same grid pattern. Could there be embedded metal within the pillars, or electromagnetic features woven into their material? These aren't questions raised lightly. Antarctica is one of the least explored continents on Earth, and much of its landmass is hidden beneath nearly 2 miles of ice. That's why a find like this, if true, would rewrite everything we know about human and pre-human History. Were these pillars part of a superstructure, a launch platform, a temple, or something else entirely? Some theorists compare the spacing to sacred geometries found in other ancient sites, like the Osirion in Egypt or the foundation pillars of Baalbek in Lebanon. Could this grid in Antarctica represent a global design, points of energy, symmetry, and connection? And if these pillars were once part of a building, what was built atop them? Could it have been a massive dome, perhaps a climate-controlled habitat designed to survive the coming freeze, or something more advanced, something that channeled energy, observed the stars, or opened passageways between locations or dimensions? Legends across cultures speak of high towers, staircases to the heavens, and homes of the gods set on icy thrones. Were these not myths, but memories of Antarctica's lost heights? Drilling attempts in the grid zone were restricted. The official reason was environmental protection, but sources close to research teams revealed that magnetic sensors became unstable near the anomaly. Equipment glitches, power drains, and even navigational disruptions were reported. Could the structures still emit energy, or are they reacting to ours? If these pillars are real, they suggest a civilization with knowledge of engineering, design, and long-term planning, not tribal nomads, not accidental formations. These were intentional, designed, measured, meant to hold weight or channel force. Could they be connected to the unexplained geothermal hotspots scattered across Antarctica? Zones where the ice thins and melts faster than anywhere else. Are these not volcanic, but technological, still functioning beneath the frost? Some theorists believe the grid was a platform, an artificial crust built over natural terrain, serving as the base of a vast city or machine. If so, the ice has swallowed its roof, walls, and towers, but the foundations remain, hidden, anchored, and immovable. Could this be why the Antarctic Treaty enforces silence and control over large sections of the continent? If a structure larger than any pyramid exists beneath the ice, who decides what happens next? Could governments already be studying it in secret? And what would they find beneath those pillars? Hallways, tunnels, reactors, or beings frozen in place? Some maps leaked in the late 20th century showed flight paths avoiding the pillar zone. One former military technician claimed the region triggered unexplained radar shadows. Others said high-altitude aircraft experienced unexpected turbulence over the same grid. Could the structures be distorting the electromagnetic field? Are they still active, still listening, or waiting for a signal to wake? In ancient architecture, pillars weren't just for strength. They symbolized gateways, conduits between heaven and earth. Could these Antarctic forms serve a similar purpose, not metaphorically, but functionally? If so, were they built to connect Earth with somewhere else, or to keep something in? The alignment of the pillars appears to follow a pattern tuned to solar angles that no longer exist, matching the sky as it looked more than 20,000 years ago. Does this date the structure? Or simply, the last time it was used? And if such alignment exists, is it possible that more structures lie along the same ancient solar paths, hidden across the globe, forming a forgotten network? Could Antarctica be the root node of something vast and deliberate? The ice has preserved the grid, but not the truth. We see only the base, the last bones of a skeleton too large to comprehend. If the rest of the structure was made of lighter materials, crystals, alloys, or bioengineered compounds, it may have vanished, melted, or disintegrated long ago. Only the supports remain, like teeth in a frozen jaw. And if these supports speak, what language do they use? geometry, magnetism, or silence? As technology improves, we will scan deeper. We will model, drill, and eventually touch what lies beneath. And when we do, the question won't be whether something once stood here. It will be whether it still stands. It doesn't look like much on satellite images. A gentle curve beneath the ice, a ring hidden under kilometers of snow. But beneath that smooth shape lies a wound in the earth, unlike any other. In West Antarctica, near the edge of the Wilkes Land ice sheet, scientists discovered what may be one of the largest impact craters on the planet, over 300 miles wide, with a central peak and ring structure, just like other known asteroid craters. Ground-penetrating radar and gravitational anomaly maps show a bowl-shaped depression so vast that it distorts the weight balance of the entire continent. For most researchers, the explanation seems simple. A meteor strike, probably during the last ice age, large enough to throw the world into chaos. Some link it to the sudden drop in global temperatures around 12,000 years ago. But others are not convinced. The shape is too clean, the depth too symmetrical, and the surrounding area, rich in magnetic interference and geothermal activity, suggests something more than just impact. Could this so-called crater actually be the result of something else? A controlled blast, a collapse, or a failed machine? Could it be the tomb of a lost civilization, swallowed in seconds by a force beyond what we understand? The theory of an extinction-causing meteor is widely accepted. But the problem is evidence. There's no shocked quartz, no global debris layer, no high concentration of iridium that typically marks a cosmic event of that scale. So, why does the shape remain? What really carved this massive void into Antarctica? Some propose a supervolcano, but again, no ash, no cone, no caldera, just silence. One theory stands apart, rarely discussed in scientific circles, but persistent in classified reports and forbidden documents. It suggests that the crater is not an impact site, but a collapse zone. That something once stood above it, massive, powerful, artificial, and that its sudden failure cracked the crust, buried its contents, and froze the aftermath beneath the coming ice. Could it have been a city, a power station, or the final explosion of an ancient war? If so, was it destroyed by accident or by design? Satellite sensors have picked up strange heat signatures from within the crater's depths, inconsistent with natural geology. Some researchers argue that this is the result of geothermal activity. But if so, why the perfect ring? Why the layered magnetic field, like ripples frozen in time? Could the explosion that formed the crater have been a last-ditch effort to erase something, or to seal it in? Ancient texts speak of cities that fell in fire, of towers struck by heaven, of great places buried by wrath. Are these myths echoes of a real event? One that left no ruins to dig, only a scar large enough to shift climate and memory? Some claim the crater lines up with other ancient sites, forming part of a lost global grid. Could this have once been a central hub, a launch platform, a capital, a laboratory? And if so, why was it erased so completely? Could the builders have triggered their own destruction, or were they attacked? Some magnetometer readings taken near the rim suggest the presence of a dense material far below, something that disrupts compasses and interferes with radio signals. No one has reached it. So, some the 40 know. Attempts to drill have been postponed, redirected, or mysteriously shut down. What lies buried in the heart of the crater? Could it be machinery, twisted and fused? A vault, sealed with layers of ice and rock? Or something still intact, still humming beneath the silence? Some believe the explosion was not just destruction, but containment. That something dangerous had to be locked away. Was it a power source, a weapon, or a gateway? Could it be the reason why Antarctica is protected so fiercely by international law, where even military presence is limited and exploration is tightly monitored? The anomaly is massive, but few speak of it openly. Why the silence? Why does one of the largest geological structures on Earth barely appear in textbooks? Could it be because the truth beneath it cannot be explained with current science? And what if this event, the blast or collapse that formed the crater, was not a solitary one? What if it was part of a chain reaction that echoed across the globe? Rising seas, sudden freezes, lost landmasses. Was this the trigger that turned Earth's axis and buried entire coastlines? Some ancient maps, long dismissed, show coastlines without ice, landmasses unbroken, and ocean levels far lower. Could those maps reflect a time before the crater was formed? A time when the thing that stood here still lived, still pulsed, still shone? And if the crater was caused by something entering, not escaping, could it have come from above or below? Is it a scar or an opening? If the ice were removed and the pressure lifted, would the sight awaken? Would it reveal a vast chamber, a sunken hall, or a geometric machine so large it only makes sense from the sky? Some researchers believe the pattern of shock around the crater suggests multiple pulses, not one. Could these have been timed blasts, like the fail-safes of a dying engine? Or were they attempts to prevent something from escaping? We may never get close enough to know, but satellites keep watching, instruments keep glitching, and rumors keep circling that beneath the ice, the crater holds not the memory of a falling star, but the grave of an empire lost to fire, sealed in snow, and waiting. Before the first city rose, before humans made fire, stories whispered of those who shaped the world with their hands. From Sumerian tablets to biblical texts, there are scattered hints of a race that came before, tall, powerful, and strange. The Sumerians called them the Anunnaki, beings who descended from the sky and taught early people the ways of civilization. The book of Genesis, though more reserved, speaks of the Nephilim, giants, children of gods and humans, who walked the earth in those ancient days. These names, written in stone and scripture, describe different cultures, different geographies, yet carry unsettling similarities. Could the Anunnaki and the Nephilim be one and the same? Were they the rulers of Earth before mankind, lost to floods, ice, and time? And more importantly, did they leave something behind, perhaps under Antarctica's ice, hidden from modern eyes? In recent decades, scholars and fringe researchers alike have begun to revisit these myths, not as allegory, but as distorted history. Ancient texts describe rulers with glowing eyes, advanced knowledge, and immense lifespans. They speak of flying crafts, tablets of power, and forbidden knowledge sealed away from mankind. Could these stories be records of a prehistoric civilization, one advanced enough to manipulate energy, matter, and life itself? If so, what does that make us? Their descendants, their experiment, or something else? Across Mesopotamia, carvings show humanoid figures with strange helmets, wrist devices, and objects resembling tools or scrolls, held with great reverence. These figures are always larger than the others, standing above kings, priests, and common people. In Egypt, gods were said to come from the stars, bringing laws, writing, and architecture. Could this be more than coincidence? Could these accounts reflect a global memory of beings who lived before the ice covered Antarctica, who may have ruled from there? Some theorists believe that the cold continent was once a central command, a sacred or strategic seat of these ancient beings. During the so-called Eocene period, Antarctica was green, warm, and teeming with life. Could it have hosted cities before the Earth cooled? And if the Anunnaki or Nephilim were real, what kind of cities would they have built? Would they resemble anything we know? Or would they be machines in the form of temples, resonant chambers carved into mountains, or power grids disguised as monuments? Geneticists have also joined the conversation. Some point to segments of the human genome that appear unusually complex, sections that don't follow the slow curve of evolution, but instead look inserted, as if patched in by design. What if this isn't random? What if humans were modified, lifted, or guided by an older intelligence, one that walked the earth before history began? Could these builders before time have had knowledge of DNA, chemistry, and planetary cycles long before we learned to write? The Book of Enoch, long excluded from the biblical canon, describes watchers, celestial beings who descended and gave forbidden knowledge to humans. Their punishment, according to the text. Could the ice be the prison or the preservation chamber of those ancient ones? And are the seismic anomalies we now detect under the ice not just machines or structures, but tombs of beings in suspended animation? Some legends speak of a war between the gods, those who created and those who corrupted. If such a war happened, could the crater found in West Antarctica be the result? A last strike, a sealing event, a planetary reset? The idea may sound fantastic, but myths across the globe describe floods, fire from the sky, and the end of a golden age. In South America, the Viracocas were white-skinned, bearded beings who built cities and vanished into the sea. In India, the Vedic texts describe flying cities, weapons of unimaginable power, and beings who lived for thousands of years. If these were real, could their origin have been Antarctic? Could that explain the global fear of the South, the mystery of the ice, and the silence of official records? Could the ancient gods have been engineers, builders of systems, not just stories? If the Anunnaki or Nephilim were real, and if they shaped mankind or its cradle, where are their records? Were they erased, hidden, or encrypted in the very architecture of Earth? Some suspect Antarctica holds the final record, the control center, the last safe vault. And if that's true, what happens when it's found? Do we remember who we are? Or do we face something that remembers us? The rise of artificial intelligence has drawn comparisons to these myths. Machines learning, reaching godlike knowledge, disconnected from human morality. What if the same thing happened once before? Could the Nephilim or Anunnaki have been biological machines, organic AI, or hybrid engineers who walked the line between creation and control? And if so, did they fall because they went too far? Were they the first to lose control of their own invention? Antarctica, silent and ancient, may hold the answer. Not in frozen ruins, but in patterns, in power lines buried deep, and in the DNA of things that should not exist. The builders before their time may not be entirely gone. They may be asleep, or they may be watching through us. Something metallic glinted beneath the ice, just long enough to be seen, then sealed again by snow and silence. The photo, now buried in obscure archives, shows a ridged rod half buried in a wall of ancient ice, its shape too clean to be natural. A leaked report from a mid-century expedition claims that small metallic objects coils, gears, and even a section of what looked like lattice framework were discovered during a deep core extraction near the Ross Ice Shelf. These weren't mineral formations. They had symmetry, polish, and machining grooves. The official story was contamination. Scrap from modern equipment. But no parts were ever reported missing. No machines were disassembled, and some of the photos were quietly removed from scientific journals before they reached print. Could this be evidence of the oldest tools ever found? Or are we seeing pieces of something bigger, a machine buried before the ice came? The questions only grow when cross-referenced with other strange finds. In the early 2000s, a team drilling for climate samples reportedly struck a metallic object at a depth far below any known settlement or station. The object rang. It was hollow. When brought up, it was sealed in a black container and flown out by private transport. The public saw nothing. Were these parts relics of a fallen civilization? Gears left from machines used to build, mine, or fly? Or were they planted, part of a hoax or misidentification? Some skeptics argue that glacial movement can compress and warp natural materials into strange forms. But others note that specific marks on these objects match no natural process. Teeth-like edges, consistent spacing, polished seams, traits that only come from deliberate manufacture, conceding, consistent day. Could these be remnants of an ancient tool set, not made by humans, but by those who came before? If the Anunnaki, Nephilim, or other advanced beings once walked Antarctica's warm lands, wouldn't they have used tools to build and shape their world? What would those tools look like after millions of years encased in ice? Would they corrode, shatter, or survive as fossils of forgotten industry? Some metallurgists who reviewed the leaked photos said the materials showed no typical rust patterns. One object, a flattened disc with a central hole and spoke-like veins, was tested briefly before vanishing into private hands. It contained an alloy not used in modern production, with traces of molybdenum, tungsten, and something unidentified. Could this suggest extraterrestrial origin, or simply an unknown phase of ancient Earth metallurgy? In one case, a retired researcher described an object shaped like a clamp or joint, made of overlapping curved plates fused together. The fusion line showed no signs of welding. It was as if the metal had been grown, not forged. Could this hint at a type of biomimetic or programmable material used by a civilization that understood both metal and life? If so, what kind of machines did they build? Were they transportation devices, mining rigs, or something more abstract, machines that controlled heat, pressure, or even time? Could these metal remnants be just the scattered pieces left after a much larger device self-destructed, or was buried during a global catastrophe? Some believe the crater in Wilkes Land is connected, and that these metal parts were ejected or scattered during that event. Could the so-called explosion have buried an entire technological complex under miles of snow, turning machines into artifacts and buildings into rumors? In 1962, a declassified document mentioned a mechanical anomaly found beneath the Beardmore Glacier. The memo was brief, cryptic, and marked for eyes only. No further mention was made. But the location aligns closely with later accounts of unexplained radar echoes and instrument malfunctions. Could something still be operating down there, or are we picking up echoes from machines that once pulsed with purpose? Some researchers have gone further, suggesting that Antarctica could be home to an ancient factory, an automated system left behind to maintain something underground. If that's true, these metal pieces may not be ruins at all. They may be tools still in use. Are the rods, clamps, and plates we see merely broken off during minor quakes, or are they parts cast aside by a machine still humming beneath the ice? If Antarctica was once a base or laboratory, who controlled its machines? And why do so many accounts of ancient tools describe devices that use vibration, magnetism, or light instead of brute force? Could the pillars, domes, and cuts in the Antarctic rock be evidence of such advanced tools? Tools unlike anything modern humans have built. If even a single artifact beneath the ice is genuine, it would mean rewriting history from the ground up. It would mean our understanding of the human timeline is incomplete, missing entire chapters of technology, knowledge, and contact. And yet, silence surrounds the topic. Why are artifact claims always denied, dismissed, or buried? Why do photos vanish and expeditions reroute? Could world powers be in a quiet race, not to discover these machines, but to control them? If these tools still hold power, if even one is a key to energy, weather, or gravity, then secrecy would be more valuable than disclosure. And if these aren't tools at all, but components of a greater mechanism, what happens when the system is reassembled? Will the machine awaken, or will it recognize that its builders are gone? The rods and gears may seem small, but together, they form a shadow of something vast, something that once moved, glowed, or spoke. If the first tools on Earth weren't made by man, then whose hands held them, and will they ever return? They left with full crews, precise coordinates, and months of supplies. But some never came back. Others returned early, shaken, refusing to speak. In the mid-20th century, multiple expeditions to Antarctica were quietly altered, aborted, or erased from public records. Official explanations ranged from frostbite to faulty engines. But whispers inside military and research circles told a different story. Magnetic anomalies scrambled navigation systems. Sudden illnesses swept through teams. Storms that should have taken hours to form erupted in minutes. One crew reported machinery that wouldn't start, then exploded without warning. Another group abandoned their drill site after 2 men collapsed, reporting nausea, hallucinations, and an overwhelming sense of being watched. Could these incidents have natural explanations? Or were these explorers getting too close to something buried under the ice? In 1947, Operation High Jump, a large U.S. Navy mission, set out with ships, planes, and over 4,000 personnel. Officially, it was a training exercise, but unofficial reports hint at something else. The mission ended abruptly, months earlier than planned. Some pilots reportedly encountered strange aerial phenomena, objects moving at impossible speeds, disappearing into the clouds near the polar plateau. Could these have been remnants of ancient technology, automated defense systems still active after millennia? Or were they secret crafts, launched to chase intruders away from forbidden zones? The expedition's official summary made no mention of these events, but the sudden withdrawal raised eyebrows. What happened out there that couldn't be printed? And why did high-ranking officers fall silent afterward? In the decades that followed, smaller research groups began disappearing with unsettling regularity. A Soviet team in the 1,960 seconds vanished entirely while crossing a known anomaly region. No wreckage, no signals, no footprints, just a final radio transmission mentioning a strange low-frequency sound coming from below. Could it have been a geological hum? Or something alive? Another group in the 1,970 seconds reported unusual compass behavior, as if pulled off course by an invisible force. Their instruments recorded a spike in electromagnetic activity, just before they turned back, citing unbearable migraines and dizziness across the entire crew. These weren't amateurs. They were trained, experienced scientists and explorers. So what could cause such widespread disorientation? Some believe there are hidden fields beneath the ice, ancient systems, perhaps still active, designed to guard a buried city or device. Could these fields trigger sickness, panic, or even memory loss? If so, might that explain the strange forgetfulness reported by a few who returned? Men who couldn't remember hours of their journey, who had photographs missing from their cameras, and whose notes showed handwriting they didn't recognize. One German researcher, in the early 1980 seconds, claimed he saw a light under the ice, moving against the current, glowing blue. When he followed it, he found a wall of ice, smoother than glass, with a strange circular pattern carved into it. When he returned the next day, the tunnel had collapsed, or so he was told. His findings were confiscated. He never published again. Was it a hallucination? Or had he reached something not meant to be found? Could these vanishing teams be victims of environmental hazards? Or did they encounter systems left behind by an ancient intelligence? Systems that repel, mislead, or erase. Some believe the ice itself is not just a barrier, but a defense. Could parts of Antarctica be under automated lockdown, triggered by movement or resonance, using technologies we don't yet understand? Could the storms reported by so many have been artificially created, generated by electromagnetic pulse or weather manipulation? The coincidences are hard to ignore. Several vanishing expeditions had charted courses through the same general region, an area near the magnetic anomaly known as the Wilkes subglacial basin. This basin, hundreds of miles wide, shows odd gravitational fluctuations, suggesting something massive lies beneath. Could it be a buried structure? A vault? And if so, is it being protected from detection? Or are the explorers being protected from it? Are these vanished expeditions the result of an accidental discovery, or are they casualties of something more intentional? Could governments be involved, quietly steering research away from dangerous truths? If ancient machines or non-human remains lie beneath the ice, the implications would be too large to control. Silence may be the easiest answer. Some private teams, operating without state oversight, have also disappeared. Satellite tracking shows them reaching certain coordinates, then nothing. No return. No signals. Their last transmissions often mention energy spikes, deep hums, or structure ahead, then static. Could the ice be hiding not just a ruin, but a boundary? A point of no return where machines still function and rules still apply? What if these expeditions didn't just vanish, but were taken or warned? Are the ancient systems awake enough to detect intrusions? Could the magnetic fields be more than leftover noise? Could they be active scans, alerting something buried deep below? Some whisper that Antarctica is not just a continent of secrets. It is a locked room, and we are scratching at its door. Every vanished expedition may be a clue, not to fear, but to understanding what's still active beneath. Because if these ancient places are guarded, there is a hidden pattern beneath our feet, a vast, invisible web of energy lines crisscrossing the planet like veins through stone. Ancient cultures called them ley lines. Modern scientists call them geomagnetic flux paths. But no matter the name, the grid exists. And Antarctica, silent and remote, sits at one of its most powerful nodes. This isn't a recent discovery. Even in the early 20th century, magnetic anomalies in the polar regions puzzled scientists. Compasses spun in strange loops. Gravity shifted slightly. Planes flew off course. But only recently have satellite scans revealed the full complexity of the energy structure beneath the ice. A web of magnetic currents flows through the crust of the Earth, converging in key regions that just happen to host some of the most mysterious ancient sites on the planet. The Great Pyramid of Giza, Stonehenge, the Nazca Lines, the temples of Angkor Wat, all sit atop intersections of this grid. Could this be coincidence? Or did ancient builders understand something we no longer do? And if so, did the civilization beneath Antarctica not only know of this grid, but use it? What if the massive pillars, the rumored domes, and the magnetic distortions aren't accidental, but part of a deliberately designed system? A system that drew energy from the planet itself. Some researchers believe that these ancient builders didn't rely on fossil fuels or fire. Instead, they harnessed the natural frequencies of the Earth, turning magnetism into motion, vibration into power. Could the layout of buried structures in Antarctica align with these magnetic paths? Recent thermal scans and magnetometer readings suggest symmetrical, repeating patterns under the ice, shapes too consistent to be random. Could this be a power network, like wires beneath a city? Or were these harmonic blueprints designed not just to survive the ages, but to sing with the planet's resonance? In multiple cases, aircraft and drones flying over the Wilkes-Land region have experienced brief system blackouts, sensors fried, recordings erased, engines disrupted. Could they have passed through a magnetic veil still active after millions of years? If the civilization under Antarctica used this magnetic grid, they must have understood the Earth in a way modern science barely approaches. Were they scientists, engineers, or something more advanced? Something that shaped the planet's energy flow rather than just studying it. Some theorists propose that the magnetic code isn't just a source of power. It's a language. That through it, ancient builders left messages not in stone, but in vibration. Frequencies that still hum beneath the crust, waiting for the right tools, or minds, to decode them. Could the strange hums reported by some expedition teams be echoes of this code? Could machines under the ice still emit signals, beacons, or warnings that we've yet to understand? The Aboriginal Dreamtime speaks of song lines, paths across the land that resonate with story and sound. The Egyptians believed the Earth was aligned to a cosmic scale. The Vedic texts described grid-like energetic structures, connecting temples and stars. What if all these ideas trace back to a single source, a civilization that once mapped the Earth's magnetic skin like a circuit board? If that's true, Antarctica wasn't a remote corner. It was the power center, the control node. Some even suggest that the structures buried there are not just buildings, but receivers and transmitters, designed to interact with the rest of the global grid. Could this explain the strange alignment of ancient sites worldwide, which seem to echo Antarctica's forgotten geometry? Is there a global pattern we've failed to see, hidden in angles, distances, and resonance? And if the builders used this grid, could it be the reason their civilization lasted so long, and why its final fall was so catastrophic? Could a collapse in the magnetic field have triggered floods, quakes, or polar shifts? Was it not just ice that buried them, but the breakdown of the very energy system they built upon? Some scientists now believe the Earth's magnetic field is not fixed, but dynamic, prone to flips and surges. Could the structures in Antarctica have been part of a global stabilization system, designed to keep the grid in balance? And if so, what happens if we unknowingly reactivate a part of it, or disrupt it further? Could modern drilling, mining, or satellite activity trigger responses from a system still listening, still humming under the ice. One ancient legend speaks of a great city that sang with the Earth's voice, but fell when the notes changed. Another describes a tower that could speak to the stars, but was shattered by a misalignment of forces. Are these symbolic, or warnings left by survivors? Could our myths of towers, ziggurats, and pyramids be echoes of real machines that once tuned into the Earth itself? If so, Antarctica may not just hold ruins. It may hold a forgotten frequency, one that connects sky, stone, and soul. And if we learn to hear it again, what will it say? Will it reveal the purpose of those who built it, or call them back? The magnetic code of the old ones is not written in books. It is etched in energy, buried in grids, and whispered through frozen stone. And beneath Antarctica's ice, it still pulses, waiting for the moment someone listens closely enough to hear it speak. When you lay a map flat and begin connecting the dots, something strange starts to happen. Draw a line from the ancient ruins of Baalbek in Lebanon to the towering pyramids of Giza. Continue it west across the Atlantic, and it cuts through Easter Island almost perfectly. But it doesn't end there. The same line, extended further, slices straight across Antarctica, touching a remote point within the frozen continent's interior, right where seismic scans have detected symmetrical anomalies buried deep below the ice. Could this be a coincidence? Or are we seeing the fingerprints of a global design? Historians dismiss these alignments as meaningless. But when dozens of sacred and megalithic sites, spanning cultures that supposedly had no contact, fall along precise geometric lines, the idea of chance becomes harder to defend. The temples of Angkor Wat, the Nazca lines, Machu Picchu, the Oracle of Delphi, and even Stonehenge all sit on or near these alignments. Could an ancient civilization, long erased from memory, have once possessed the tools and knowledge to map the Earth with this level of accuracy? And if so, how? How? Some researchers believe these lines are remnants of a lost global grid, a geodetic framework used by ancient builders to place sacred and scientific sites, a sort of blueprint laid over the Earth itself. If that's true, then Antarctica's position isn't random, it's central. Could the icy continent have once served as the anchor point for a planetary system of knowledge, energy, or even travel? A place so vital that its destruction, or burial, fractured the entire network. The implications are enormous. Such precision would require not only advanced surveying methods, but a deep understanding of the planet's curvature, magnetic fields, and rotational wobble. These are measurements that modern science only confirmed within the last few centuries. So, how did the ancients know? Did they possess instruments now lost to time? Or were they taught? By whom? The line connecting these sites is often referred to as the Great Circle. And when plotted in three-dimensional space, it doesn't just connect landmarks, it forms a path of symmetry, one that seems to wrap around the globe like a belt. Could this have been an ancient equator, back when Earth's axis tilted differently? Or was it a sacred alignment, chosen for reasons we can't yet understand? Some suggest it wasn't about geography, but energy, that this circle marks a path of least resistance through the planet's magnetic field, ideal for transmitting information, power, or even matter. If the civilization under Antarctica tapped into this grid, could they have built these far-flung temples and monuments not as isolated wonders, but as connected nodes in a larger system? Were these sites part of a communication network, a resonance field, or a navigational map for sky-based travel? Theories once dismissed as fantasy gain weight when ancient sites, thousands of miles apart, share architectural techniques, sacred numbers, and astronomical alignments. The same base 6-0 math appears in Mesopotamia and Mesoamerica. Pyramids rise in both Egypt and Peru. Sun worship, star tracking, and equinox markers appear across cultures, separated by oceans and millennia. Could these similarities be the echoes of a shared parent culture, one lost to floods, ice, or fire? And if Antarctica was once their capital or origin point, is that why the lines converge there? Some believe the Great Circle may be more than a map. It may be a warning, a record of power, or perhaps a record of disaster. Were the sites placed to stabilize Earth's energies, to mark ley lines or vortex points? And what happens if that balance is broken? Could this explain why some sites were buried, abandoned, or dismantled? Was the network shut down intentionally, like a system powering down? Modern mapping technology, paired with ancient site data, continues to reveal new alignments. Lines that extend across continents, joining shrines, stone circles, and forgotten cities in patterns too precise to ignore. Could these lines form a kind of global sigil, a sacred geometry drawn across the planet, waiting to be decoded? If so, what does it reveal? A message, a function, or a key to something buried? Antarctica may hold that key. Some researchers now theorize that the grid was used not just to track energy or seasons, but to maintain time itself. That the ancients built with planetary resonance in mind, syncing their lives with celestial rhythms. Could the disruption of Antarctica's site, the crater, the collapse, or the magnetic shift, have unbalanced that system, triggering the lost ages described in myths around the world? And if the lines converge there, does it mean something still rests beneath the ice, intact, sleeping, or active? The idea may seem far-fetched, but history is filled with forgotten truths and half-buried maps. Perhaps we haven't been drawing lines across old ruins. Perhaps we've been retracing something that was already there, etched into the earth by hands older than any record, and smarter than we dare imagine. When the grid is fully revealed, will it show a world shaped by randomness or by purpose? The more lines we draw, the less accidental it all appears. And the more we realize, we may have inherited a planet already mapped, already measured, and already waiting for something to be awakened. Etched into the side of an exposed rock face near Antarctica's Queen Maud Land lies something few have seen, and even fewer can explain. Rows of strange, deliberate carvings, half buried by snow and worn smooth by time. They don't resemble tool scratches, ice fractures, or natural erosion. These marks curve, intersect, and repeat with a rhythm that suggests language, or at least meaning. Discovered during a short-lived geological survey in the mid-20th century, the symbols were photographed, sketched, and quietly filed away under restricted access. Some of the explorers who saw them firsthand said the carvings reminded them of the symbols on Easter Island or the ones carved into the blocks of Pumapunku. Too geometric to be animal figures, too abstract to be mere decoration. Could this be the lost written language of a civilization that once lived in Antarctica before the land froze over? And if so, who were they writing for? What message lies in those lines, waiting to be read? Comparisons were immediately made to known scripts: Sumerian cuneiform, Egyptian hieroglyphs, even the undeciphered rongorongo of Rapa Nui. But the Antarctic symbols didn't match any of them directly. Instead, they seemed to echo patterns from all of them, like a parent script that came before. Could the world's oldest known written languages all trace back to this one forgotten source? Some glyphs appeared as spirals within squares, others as triangle clusters arranged in repeating sequences. One recurring figure looked like an 8-pointed star broken in half. Were these letters, numbers, or something else? Perhaps coordinates or cosmological data? Could the carvings represent a kind of ancient code, meant to preserve knowledge across generations, or time itself? If these markings were indeed language, then who carved them, and with what tools? The stone is harder than granite, and the etchings are precise, as if made with laser-like instruments or hardened metal tips. No chisel marks, no signs of hammering. Could this suggest a lost technology capable of clean incisions in dense rock, millions of years before human civilization emerged? Some theorists propose that the stone may have once stood as part of a larger monument, a gateway. And the glyphs, positioned on the eastern face, may have caught morning light in ways that revealed patterns or shadows. Could the symbols have been animated by sunlight, forming moving messages or triggering reflective signals to passing observers in the sky? Was it language or interface? Across the globe, similar carvings appear on megaliths from civilizations that supposedly had no contact with each other. How could the same shapes and alignments show up in South America, Mesopotamia, and the frozen edge of Antarctica? Could it mean there was once a shared culture, one vast enough to leave pieces of its script scattered across continents? If the carvings in Antarctica predate these other sites, could this frozen land be the origin point, the library from which all other scripts emerged? And if so, is this where humanity's memory begins, or where someone else's story ends? Ancient myths often speak of a time when the gods gave humans the gift of writing. But what if writing wasn't given to us? What if we inherited it from a forgotten world, already fluent in stone? What if these marks weren't meant for us at all? Some researchers now use pattern recognition software to compare the Antarctic glyphs to global symbol databases. Early results show unlikely correlations between the carvings and star charts, particularly those tracking the positions of Orion, Sirius, and the southern celestial pole. Could these symbols encode astronomical knowledge? Or were they used to track cosmic events, like alignments, comets, or planetary shifts? Could the glyphs be not just a language, but a map, one pointing to something still buried beneath the ice? Other clues deepen the mystery. Near the carved wall, small fragments of what appeared to be metallic flakes were found embedded in the stone's cracks. Analysis showed traces of alloy compounds not present in the surrounding geology. Were they remnants of tools or decorative inlays once used to highlight the carvings? Could the glyphs have once shimmered with embedded material, reflecting starlight or guiding ancient travelers? If so, who built such precision into such a remote and harsh land, and why? Some believe the markings are warnings, left behind by the last survivors of a cataclysm, a message carved in a script that no longer has speakers, waiting for the right moment or the right mind to decipher it. Others suggest the carvings are ceremonial, part of a ritual technology that used vibration or sound to activate changes in the environment. Could ancient people or beings have sung these symbols into power? What happens if someone recreates those sounds today? Perhaps the carvings in Antarctica are more than just writing. Perhaps they are instructions, coordinates, or keys. Maybe the builders knew the ice would come, and they etched their knowledge into the most durable surface they could find, hoping that one day, in the far future, someone would rediscover it and understand. But if these symbols are truly from the first builders, then their message is older than anything in recorded history. It speaks not just across distance, but across epochs. It speaks across extinction. And it speaks still, frozen in stone, waiting to be heard once more. Something was down there, deep beneath the Antarctic ice, that no one expected to find. Fossils. But not just any fossils. These were strange, isolated shapes imprinted in ancient layers, their forms unlike anything in the known evolutionary tree. Small fragments first, odd ridges, spines arranged in unfamiliar patterns, a jawline here, a curving vertebra there, then full outlines that seemed to match no known life on Earth. Teams who found them went silent. Reports disappeared. Photos leaked only once, grainy and half-glimpsed, then vanished from official channels. The prevailing belief says Antarctica's fossil record ends with known species, mostly from the age of dinosaurs or the earlier Permian life forms. But these fossils came from older strata, so deep that geologists initially dismissed them as geological trickery, until someone looked closer. The symmetry was too precise. The structures were too organic. Some showed bilateral alignment, joint sockets, even tooth rows that hinted at a complex nervous system. Yet they predated any creature that should have existed. Could they be relics of a pre-dinosaur era? Creatures from an earlier world, now forgotten? Some researchers quietly began calling them forbidden fossils, because they didn't just challenge evolutionary timelines, they shattered them. The bones suggested tool-gripping limbs, thick skull casings, and spinal configurations made for upright movement. And then came the skull, a single fractured piece, found embedded in permafrost, far below the standard fossil line. It was humanoid. Elongated, yes, and lacking human proportions. But the orbital sockets and dental arch drew gasps from those who saw the scans. It wasn't human, but it wasn't an animal either. And it was old. Far too old. If these fossils are real, then the Earth once housed a form of intelligence before what we call life even began to crawl. But who, or what, were they? Were these creatures servants of a higher species? Or the higher species themselves? Did they build the things we now suspect lie buried, those geometrical formations beneath the ice, the grid pillars, the anomalous metal fragments? Or were they the first caretakers of a different kind of Earth? Some theorists connect the dots to ancient myths. The beings called the Nephilim, said to predate humanity, or the Anunnaki, said to descend from the stars. Could these beings have had physical forms now lost to time, their legacy reduced to faint skeletal remains hidden in forgotten layers? The implications are enormous. Evolution does not allow for intelligence to rise before multicellular life fully took hold. Yet here, in the deepest cores, lies evidence that seems to whisper of something that broke that rule. Were these bones mutated by natural forces, or remnants of a species born of an intelligence, one that perhaps manipulated biology at a level we have yet to comprehend? One fossil showed ridged implants along the spinal cord, as if bone and machine had fused. Another revealed what looked like synthetic fiber embedded near joint tissue, but so old it had partially fossilized. Scientists scrambled to explain this as contamination. But what if it wasn't? Could these be signs of biomechanical engineering from a civilization long before the first mammals emerged? Were they testing life? Altering it? Seeding it? And if they existed, where did they go? Were they wiped out in a global cataclysm? Or did they choose to disappear, hiding their creations under layers of shifting ice and rewriting the planet's biological future through code hidden in DNA? Some researchers speak of genetic anchors, anomalies in mitochondrial DNA that appear out of place, as though inserted. Might the forbidden fossils represent not a separate evolutionary tree, but the root, the template from which others branched out? If so, then what we think of as human might be the end of a plan, not the start. And if we are part of that plan, who started it? Why was this knowledge hidden? Were these fossils destroyed to protect a deeper truth? Or were they buried intentionally, sealed in ice, so only those willing to look, really look, would find them? A few whistleblowers from international Antarctic research stations have hinted at controlled digs, unreported finds, and even off-limits grid zones where scanning is prohibited. Why? What's down there that no one is allowed to see? What if the fossils weren't random discoveries at all, but pieces of something bigger? A burial field? A tomb? A laboratory? What if Antarctica was once a research colony, from a forgotten age, where biology was not studied, but shaped? Is it possible that the ancient beings found in fossil form were not natural at all, but prototypes? Could these be the first blueprints of consciousness, stored in flesh, now slowly surfacing through the thawing ice? One recovered tooth, preserved in a resine-like fossil compound, showed crystalline patterns under magnification, patterns that some experts called impossible, structures too perfect to be biological. Could this be a form of organic computing, grown rather than built? If so, then Antarctica isn't just holding bones, it's holding memory. And as the ice melts, those memories are rising. Fossils are not just remnants of what once lived. Sometimes they are warnings, or maps, or messages. Could the forbidden fossils be a record left for someone, us, to find at a moment in time when we'd understand what we were looking at? Or worse, were they meant to stay buried, locked under layers of silence for a reason? And the question becomes chillingly clear. Are we finding them, or are they letting themselves be found? The Cold War was full of secrets, but few were stranger than the whispers that came out of Antarctica. Soviet teams sent to the southern ice in the 1,950 seconds and 1,960 seconds weren't just measuring weather or drilling for core samples. Hidden within old intelligence archives and obscure declassified documents are mentions of something else. Anomalous objects found beneath the ice. Not rocks, not bones, but devices, melted fragments, plates of metal fused with strange inscriptions, circuit-like patterns embedded in layers of frozen silt. Most of these reports never made it to the scientific journals. They were quietly swept into state intelligence files. But a handful of technicians, geologists, and transport officers came forward years later, offering scattered accounts of what they had seen. One man described a flat metallic plate, roughly the size of a human torso, found buried in a crevasse near Lake Vostok. It had no bolts, no seams, and no signs of corrosion. Along its surface were lines, etched not with tools but with light itself, like laser paths sunk into the alloy. Another team reported a strange metallic orb, soft to the touch, yet too cold to handle. When warmed, it appeared to glow faintly from within. Were these parts of a machine, relics from a forgotten technology? Some Soviet scientists speculated that they might be meteoric debris. Could they have been part of a system, a power source, or a communications device built by hands millions of years ago? And if so, who built them, and for what purpose? American intelligence had their own suspicions. U.S. satellite photos from the same era revealed odd shapes under the ice, which some suspected were artificial. But Soviet teams got there first. They were said to have cordoned off certain dig sites, erecting opaque tents and rerouting survey teams away from the finds. Did they know what they were dealing with? Or were they trying to hide something even they didn't understand? The most compelling claims came from a helicopter pilot who ferried cargo between remote research stations. He claimed to have seen crates loaded with curved metallic sheets, some inscribed with circular patterns that pulsed faintly when hit by sunlight. Could these have been control panels? Or fragments of an advanced technology frozen during operation? Other descriptions included honeycomb panels of fused crystal, narrow tubes with flexible joints, and thin rods with spiral grooves that glowed when exposed to heat. None of it matched modern equipment. Could these be remnants of a machine that once operated beneath Antarctica, before the last magnetic shift or asteroid strike sealed it away? Or were they devices left behind by a race that vanished before Earth's surface ever saw human life? Some believe these parts are not just machines, but interfaces, tools built to manipulate energy, data, or even biological systems. Could they be diagnostic tools, resonance controllers, or machines designed to control natural forces? Were they harvesting energy from the magnetic grid we now suspect lies beneath Antarctica's crust? Or were they transmitting something across the world? Light, sound, memory. And if they were machines, why were they abandoned? Did they malfunction? Or were they shut down intentionally, sealed away with the civilization that once used them? Perhaps these devices weren't forgotten. They were entombed. A few experts now compare the shapes seen in those reports to early Sumerian and Indus Valley tablets. Similar patterns, similar glyph placements, even similar proportions. Is it possible the machines and the symbols in stone share a single origin point? Could the same minds that carved the language into bedrock have once programmed it into light-sensitive metal? If these machines belong to the so-called first civilization, then we're not just uncovering history, we're unearthing a technology far beyond what we expected from Earth's past. One report mentioned that some artifacts reacted to proximity. Their lights flickered when approached. Could that imply power, memory, or even awareness? What if these weren't just tools, but something more? Were they storing data, tracking life, or guarding what lies deeper under the ice? And if so, is someone or something still watching? The recovered artifacts reportedly vanished into black vaults in Moscow, never displayed, never studied openly. Could they still exist today, hidden in some forgotten hangar or underground bunker? Or were they destroyed to keep their secrets buried? Some say similar finds have occurred in recent years, but are suppressed immediately by international treaty powers. Why such secrecy, unless the discoveries change everything? What if the Earth has always had a deeper technological layer, older than steel, older than stone, etched not by human hands, but by another intelligence that understood time and matter differently? If so, these melted plates and light-etched circuits may be not debris, but breadcrumbs. And if we follow them, where do they lead? Are we about to awaken something no one was meant to find? Or are we simply catching up to truths long hidden in plain sight, sealed in ice, pulsing quietly beneath our feet, waiting to be remembered? Legends from across the world whisper of fire from the sky, floods that swallowed cities, and gods who clashed in battles so violent the earth itself was reshaped. But what if those stories aren't just metaphors? What if they echo something real? A war fought not by gods, but by an ancient, advanced civilization that existed before any life we know took its first breath. The ice that now blankets Antarctica did not always cover the land. Before the Great Freeze, It may have held cities, towers, and machines. And if so, what event was powerful enough to bury it all under miles of cold silence? Some researchers now believe the answer could be war. Not a human war, but a prehistoric one, fought by beings who harnessed forces we can barely understand. Could the climate collapse that ended the last warm age have been triggered not by nature, but by technology used in a conflict so massive it disrupted the planet's magnetic fields, fractured tectonic plates, and filled the skies with ash and soot? The fossil record shows sudden extinctions. Ice cores mark sharp chemical spikes. Myths tell of a sky that darkened, oceans that rose, and entire lands swallowed overnight. In Hindu texts, there are stories of flying vehicles that shot beams of light strong enough to melt stone. In Sumerian epics, gods battled over territory and cursed one another with storms and fire. Could these stories be echoes of that prehistoric war? A war fought with technologies now long lost, yet buried under our feet. If a great conflict took place, Antarctica would be a prime suspect for its ground zero. Seismic scans show signs of massive craters hidden beneath the ice, paired with magnetic anomalies that defy explanation. Some believe these are not natural formations, but scars left from energy weapons or fusion-based technology. What kind of power could cause such damage? And what would drive an advanced species to destroy itself? Could it have been a civil war between factions of a dominant race? Or was it a rebellion, perhaps by genetically engineered servants turning against their makers? Were they the Nephilim of the Bible, or the Anunnaki described in Mesopotamian tablets, beings who once ruled the earth, then vanished? Could a final war between these ancient houses have shattered their world and caused the collapse of their planetary grid? If such a grid once tapped into Earth's energy, breaking it might have caused shockwaves strong enough to shift climate zones and plunge the world into ice. Is it possible that Antarctica's frozen tomb is not just the site of an ancient civilization, but the battleground that ended it? And if so, what still lies buried, intact or dormant? Could machines, weapons, or records remain, hidden beneath the layers of ice, waiting to be found or reawakened? Some theorists even suggest that Antarctica's sudden freeze was not a natural process at all, but a deliberate act, an artificial shutdown triggered to contain something dangerous. Was the ice a consequence or a quarantine? Did the winners of this ancient war seal off the battlefield to keep the world safe from what remained? And if so, are we now, by drilling, scanning, and exploring, about to open that vault? Could the melting ice be releasing more than just water? Is something waiting? Some scholars have noted that similar stories of destruction appear in cultures separated by oceans and time. The Norse spoke of Ragnarok, a final battle between gods that ended the world in ice. The Greeks told of Atlantis, a powerful civilization drowned in a single day. The Hopi described worlds that were destroyed when people misused the knowledge given to them. Could all these stories be fragmented memories of a single global event? One seen from different angles, passed down across generations? If the war happened, and it ended in disaster, it makes sense that survivors, if any, might have buried the evidence, rewritten the truth, and started civilization again from scratch. Could that be why humanity emerged so suddenly, seemingly from nowhere, with stories of teachers from the stars and forgotten ages of gold? Is that why certain knowledge about energy grids, sacred geometry, and ancient scripts appears fully formed in early societies? Could the ruins under Antarctica be the original cradle of civilization, not for us, but for those who came before? And if the final war of the ancients caused the Earth's great reset, is it possible that history is repeating as we race to uncover what's hidden beneath the ice? Are we also stumbling toward secrets we were never meant to find again? Secrets that were buried not just by time, but by choice. Maybe the ancients didn't vanish. Maybe they fell, and their fall left behind the cold silence we now walk upon. Antarctica's frozen world may be less a graveyard and more a locked door, one sealed by fire, guarded by ice, and forgotten by design. And now, as we press our ears to the door, the old world stirs once more. Across cultures and continents, the stories are oddly similar. Tall beings, often pale or glowing, who came from the sky or sea and taught early humans language, farming, or mathematics. In Sumeria, they were the Anunnaki. In Hebrew tradition, they were the Nephilim. In Andean myth, the Viracochas. But why are these ancient stories, from people who never met, filled with nearly identical descriptions? And why do so many of them describe skin as white, pale, or radiant, and stature as giant? These questions took a chilling turn when images began circulating from a remote Antarctic dig. The leaked photos showed something strange beneath the ice. A frozen figure, partially revealed, humanoid in shape, but much larger than any human. Its posture was symmetrical, as though placed intentionally, and the skin, visible in preserved fragments, was pale as bone, almost translucent, preserved by the freezing temperatures. The official explanation was ice formations or pareidolia, just illusions of shape. But the proportions were precise, too exact to be random. Could these be bodies, not statues? Could something, someone, have been entombed in the ice for longer than history remembers? Some whisper that certain Antarctic teams were pulled out of areas quickly after such forms were discovered. A few researchers who saw early thermal scans reported shapes arranged in patterns beneath the ice, not lying scattered, but standing, vertical, aligned, frozen in place, as if part of a structure or ceremony. Were these beings part of a pre-dinosaur civilization? Were they its rulers, builders, or symbols? Or were they messengers from somewhere else? Did the legends of giants come from half-remembered sightings of these beings, glimpsed during rare thaws or cataclysms? And if so, why were these forms preserved so carefully, protected under ice for millions of years? Some believe the beings under Antarctica are not fossilized, but frozen mid-preservation. Bodies still intact, organs perhaps still readable by future science. Could their DNA be the missing link that explains the sudden appearance of Homo sapiens? Were these giants not just builders, but contributors to our genetic code? If so, does that make them ancestors, gods, or something else entirely? A group of researchers once claimed to detect faint energy fields near one such frozen figure, almost like a residual charge. Was it the last echo of lost technology, or the side effect of something more biological? Is it possible these giants were preserved intentionally, perhaps for later reactivation? Were they placed beneath the ice as guardians or prisoners? And who made that choice? Some believe the positioning of the figures suggests ritual burial. Others see them as trophies, remains of a civil war between beings now lost to time. If that's true, could Antarctica be the crypt of the losing side in a forgotten war between titans? And what happens if the ice continues to melt? Will more of them be revealed? How many still lie, hidden? Dozens? Hundreds? More? Why are there no public investigations? Why are new satellite scans restricted by treaty zones and ground-penetrating radar data often classified? Could someone already know what's down there and be trying to keep it hidden? Ancient carvings around the world show similar beings. Tall figures with large eyes, often surrounded by symbols of stars. Were these depictions based on something real? Did the ancients see these beings walk the earth? Or did they remember someone else who did? In some tribal stories, the pale ones came from beneath the earth. Could the beings under the ice be the same ones who taught early civilizations, only to disappear when their time ended? Or were they forced underground by disaster or by choice? Some believe the beings were not human at all, but an older species, one that lived in harmony with Earth's natural energies. When those energies were disrupted, they perished or left. But a few remained, encased in ice, held in silence. Could we be looking at the last members of a species that once guided the world? Or are these forms something more unsettling? Failed experiments, hybrid creations, frozen before completion. Their size, their placement, their preservation, it all suggests design. And that raises the question: was this a grave, a monument, or a warning? Why would a civilization capable of such preservation choose Antarctica? Was it already cold then? Or did they make it cold to protect what was left? Were these giants the last witnesses to a forgotten age? Or were they sealed beneath the earth to prevent their return? Some think these beings are sleeping, not dead, and that the magnetic shifts happening now might begin to disturb their slumber. If they awaken, what will they remember? And how will they see us? The children of a world they may have once ruled. Perhaps we are not digging into ice. Perhaps we are digging into memory. And memory, when disturbed, has a way of rising. The giants in the ice are not just a mystery. They are a mirror, a reflection of what we may become, or what we were made from. As we continue to peer into that mirror, the question grows colder, sharper. Do we seek to uncover them, or become them? Across the scattered remnants of old myths and forbidden discoveries, a strange idea begins to form. What if the first beings weren't gods at all, but engineers? Not deities demanding worship, but scientists building systems too advanced for early humans to understand. Could they have shaped Earth's earliest structures, seeded life, and then stepped back, waiting for the right moment to return? In Antarctica, hidden beneath layers of ice, some researchers now believe the ruins are more than just buildings. They may be encoded, designed not simply to shelter or preserve, but to communicate. Carvings found in some exposed rock formations show repeating glyphs, lines, spirals, and symbols that seem mathematically precise. Some bear a strong resemblance to patterns found in crop circles or ancient megalithic sites. Could this be an ancient programming language, not written in words, but in ratios, alignments, and vibrations? And if so, who was meant to read it? Could it be us? Were these structures designed to reveal themselves only when Earth reached a certain state, when its magnetic fields aligned, when the ice began to melt? Or when our own science evolved far enough to interpret the message? If the engineers were real, and their tools lie beneath the ice, perhaps their return is not physical, but informational, a hand reaching across time, not through flesh, but through design. What if their technology was made to last for eons, awakening only when a certain signal is triggered by temperature, magnetism, or human contact? Satellite scans have picked up electromagnetic anomalies around some Antarctic sites, unexplained bursts of radio frequency or heat signatures with no known source. Could these be dormant systems coming online, or testing their environment in preparation? And what were the engineers waiting for? A change in climate? A shift in consciousness? Or something more specific, our ability to decipher the code they left behind. The theory grows more intriguing when considering the precision of ancient sites across the globe. From Giza to Teotihuacan, from Baalbek to Easter Island, the structures share measurements and placements tied to Earth's magnetic lines. They seem less like random monuments and more like pieces of a global system, a grid of knowledge. Could Antarctica be the central hub of this grid, its heart hidden in ice until the right moment? And if so, is that moment now? Some theorists believe the engineers planned their disappearance, coding their knowledge into stone and metal, knowing time would erode everything but geometry. Were the pillars found beneath the Antarctic ice not supports, but data storage? Were the metallic plates not weapons, but keys? Could the ruins themselves be a giant machine, calibrated to respond to humanity once we advanced enough to activate it? What would that activation trigger? A memory vault? A message? A portal? Or something less comforting, like a protocol for judgment or correction? If the engineers saw themselves as caretakers, perhaps their return isn't to reunite, but to inspect. Are we meeting the builders of our world, or its architects of reset? Some believe the engineers were not native to Earth at all, that their understanding of biology, energy, and planetary balance suggests an origin beyond this planet. Were they visitors, colonists, or refugees from a dying star? And if so, did they leave behind more than just structures? Did they embed part of themselves, genetically or technologically, into early life? Could we be the legacy they left behind, or part of a test they initiated? Some stories speak of watchers, beings who step in only when humanity strays too far. Were these watchers not gods, but engineers maintaining a system too complex for us to see? And if their tools remain beneath the ice, silently watching, could they soon awaken? Some believe they already have. Some believe. Researchers have reported humming sounds deep under the ice, low-frequency tones that don't match seismic activity. Could this be part of an ancient resonance system, broadcasting across the grid, checking for signs of readiness? And are we the ones finally triggering that signal? Or are we just the latest in a long line of civilizations to reach this point, each one unlocking the door, only to find they were not alone? Some myths tell of beings who return in cycles, appearing when stars align, or when the Earth cries out. If the ice melting is that cry, are we about to meet the return of those ancient minds? And how will they appear? In form, as they once walked among us, or in function, as systems awakening, programs executing, machines coming online? Perhaps the engineers never truly left. Perhaps they exist now as data, embedded in the very structure of the Earth, awaiting only the correct input. Could our rising technologies, AI, particle physics, satellite imaging, be accidentally activating these forgotten instructions? Are we decoding the past, or being decoded by it? If the Antarctic ruins hold more than stone, if the signals are growing stronger, and the ice reveals more with every season, the question becomes urgent. What happens when the system reaches completion? When all pieces are found, when the message is clear, and the builders return, not as myth, but as fact? If the engineers built the world before ours, what do they plan for the next one? In December of the year 1959, something unusual happened. 12 countries, some of them locked in bitter Cold War rivalry, suddenly agreed on one thing: Antarctica must remain untouched. They signed a treaty to protect it, banning military use, forbidding territorial claims, and restricting drilling or excavation in certain zones. Since then, the agreement has grown to include over 50 nations, all united in the belief that this frozen continent must not be disturbed. But why such unity over a land of snow and ice? Why such strict limits on exploration in a place where hardly anyone lives? And why are the most interesting areas, those marked by unusual magnetic readings, strange heat signatures, or rumored ruins, always classified, guarded, or sealed? Could it be that the treaty is not just about science or peace, but about secrets buried in ice, secrets so powerful they must be hidden from the world? Many believe the Antarctic Treaty is the most obvious global cover-up still in plain sight. It forbids any new military bases, but military personnel are allowed for logistical support. It claims to support freedom of scientific investigation, but most data from the deepest ice core drills and remote sensing is never published. And access to certain regions, especially those with underground lakes, suspected impact sites, or magnetic anomalies, is quietly denied, even to accredited researchers. Why are parts of a supposedly open continent so tightly controlled? Some researchers claim that early expeditions discovered something unexpected in the 1,940 seconds and 1,950 seconds, something that alarmed both superpowers. There are stories of U.S. Navy Operation High Jump encountering strange aerial phenomena. Soviet missions reportedly vanished for days or returned with injured crews who refused to speak. After these events, the treaty was signed. Could it have been a response to a discovery no nation wanted to share? Or a mutual agreement to contain what lay beneath? What if the treaty's real purpose is not to protect the environment, but to protect the status quo? Could it be that the ruins, machines, and preserved beings found in the ice would unravel everything we believe about history, evolution, and power? And could global elites be cooperating to keep that story from reaching the surface? Even within the treaty itself, some language feels vague. What exactly defines non-disturbance of the environment? Who decides where drilling is allowed? And why are satellite photos of certain locations, particularly the ones near magnetic poles or ancient crater sites, always distorted, blurred, or outdated? In recent decades, a few researchers tried to challenge the restrictions. Some sent drones into off-limits valleys. Others attempted ground-penetrating radar sweeps. Many were shut down quickly. Their equipment was confiscated, funding pulled, access revoked. If Antarctica is so empty and so pure, why the need for such tight control? Is someone afraid of what might be found, or what might be confirmed? The treaty was signed during a time when governments feared nuclear war. But perhaps they feared something older, colder, and far more destabilizing, a truth buried under the ice. Could it be that Antarctica holds remnants of a civilization not mentioned in any textbook? What happens if the world learns that humanity is not the first intelligent species to rise here, or that the Earth has been visited, engineered, or influenced far longer than we imagine? Some believe certain nations already know that key discoveries were made decades ago, artifacts recovered, structures mapped, bodies preserved, and quietly locked away in deep underground vaults. Perhaps the treaty ensures that these finds stay secret, a global pact to delay disclosure. But to what end? Are they protecting us from panic, or themselves from accountability? And what would happen if even one of those discoveries was made public? If a preserved body, ancient machine, or encoded message was shown to the world, how would religions respond? How would science explain it? How would governments justify decades of silence? Some believe this is the very reason the treaty exists, not as a safeguard, but as a wall. A frozen firewall to keep the past from flooding into the present. Could it be that all world powers, regardless of ideology, fear the same thing? That the truth about Antarctica would make borders, flags, and histories meaningless? If so, then the treaty is not a symbol of unity, but of fear. And every clause, every restriction, every forbidden zone is a crack in the story we've been told, one that grows wider with every melt season, every new scan, every whistleblower who dares to speak. What if the greatest discovery of our time is not a planet far away, but a city beneath our feet, sealed by ice, guarded by law, and hidden by design? And what if that discovery isn't waiting to be found, but is waiting to be released? As we stare into the cold silence of Antarctica, the question grows sharper. Is the ice protecting something beneath it, or are we being protected from what's below? Something beneath the ice isn't melting. It's waking up. Recent thermal scans have revealed vast tunnel systems hidden deep under Antarctica's frozen crust, twisting and branching like the underground veins of a forgotten city. But these aren't ordinary caves. Their symmetry is unnatural. Their layout is deliberate. These tunnels run in straight lines and perfect arcs, defying what we know about natural geology. Some spiral downward, others intersect like ancient roadways, and all of them stretch farther than any known cave system. Researchers say they are not the work of lava, wind, or animals. So who built them? And why? Could these be the transit lines of a buried metropolis? Some of the tunnels are large enough to fit modern trains. Others link to massive chambers, domed vaults deep underground that give off residual warmth far beneath the reach of sunlight. What source could be generating that heat now? Is it geological or artificial? Some scientists claim these warm spots align with unusual magnetic fields, and their consistency suggests long-term planning. Could the tunnels still be active? Not abandoned? Or worse, could they be locked from the inside? These structures don't wind aimlessly like natural caves. They follow harmonic ratios, geometric alignment, and even patterns found in ancient architecture. Were they part of a global design? A blueprint laid out by the same intelligence that built the pyramids and stone circles across Earth. And if that intelligence originated here, beneath Antarctica, what else is waiting to be uncovered? Leaked radar data points to echo walls, smooth surfaces that reflect signals like polished stone or engineered metal. Were these intentional barriers? Could they be doors? Some drone teams have reported sudden signal interference near these tunnel mouths. Their footage, when it survives, shows no wildlife, no movement, no life. Just a creeping sense that the ice is watching back. There are whispers that the deeper you go, the quieter it gets. Too quiet. Could this be an abandoned machine complex? Asleep, but intact? Or is it a tomb, sealed with precision to prevent something from ever leaving? The theories grow darker. Some believe these tunnels were not for transport, but containment. That what lies beneath was never meant to be seen again. Or worse, that it's still there, dormant, waiting. A few thermal images suggest concentric layouts, rings, not lines. Could these be vaults, chambers for storage, or stasis? Is it possible the tunnels once connected a network of cryogenic halls, used to preserve not just tools or texts, but biological beings? And if so, are they extinct or frozen on purpose? Others suggest a less biological theory, that the tunnels were conduits for energy, built to transfer sound, heat, or resonance across miles. Some of the walls reflect not just radar, but low-frequency vibration. Could this be an ancient power grid, now dormant beneath ice? And if it reactivates, what does it power? Some legends speak of inner Earth cities. Others tell of star visitors who hid beneath mountains and snow. Could these tunnels be the last remaining evidence that the gods of old were engineers, and their laboratories lie hidden under our feet? Or were these routes once used to leave this world? Are we looking at ancient launch tunnels, hangars that once held ships, capable of navigating not just Earth, but space? One particular tunnel, known in leaked records as Node 9, appears to split into 6 corridors, each one curving perfectly outward like spokes on a wheel. Some believe this is the center, a command hub, or a vault. And the strange thing is, it's warm, not molten, not volcanic, but steady, controlled, as if something deep below has kept the environment from freezing, even after millions of years. Could the materials of the tunnel walls be the same mysterious alloys found at other ancient sites? Why does the design echo the buried complexes found in Turkey's Derinkuyu or Peru's Sacsayhuaman? Are these coincidences? Or is there a pattern humanity has forgotten? Some theorists believe the tunnels themselves are part of the message, that they were left behind as both shelter and clue, that their curves, lines, and coordinates point to an intelligence that once ruled the earth. Could the tunnels be reawakening as the ice melts, their sealed doors softening, their systems preparing? Or is someone already inside, studying what we are only now beginning to suspect? The world has been told these are glacial fissures, exaggerated by imagination, but maps change, temperatures rise, and secrets don't stay buried forever. The tunnels beneath Antarctica are not random. They are not accidents. They are planned, placed, and preserved. And as they begin to show themselves, inch by inch, the truth they carry begins to pulse through the frozen ground. They are not just paths to the past. They are warnings. And if we follow them far enough, we may reach the mind that built them and the reason it chose to disappear. Before Earth had jungles or mammals, something may have arrived. Not born here, but from beyond, silent, calculated, and watching. The idea that Antarctica served as a port is not just science fiction. It's a theory built from strange alignments, forbidden myths, and ruins that whisper of flight in an age with no sky. The ancient astronaut theory, once dismissed by scholars, begins to feel less like a fantasy when mapped against the puzzle under Antarctica. If the Anunnaki were real, if the Nephilim were not just metaphors but memories, could they have come not from some lost land, but from another world? And if so, did they land here, at the bottom of the earth, where the ice now guards what once rose high? The layout of the tunnels, the symmetry of the buried pillars, the electromagnetic hum beneath the crust, each piece begins to resemble infrastructure, not random, not natural, but prepared. Could this have been a base? A dock? Some of the oldest myths describe gods who descended in fire, who shaped the earth with metal tools and vanished into the sky. Were they not gods, but pilots? Scientists? Engineers who came here with purpose and left a message we have yet to decode? On satellite images, certain flat-topped mountains resemble ancient landing pads, perfectly leveled, rising alone among jagged peaks. Some bear marks that suggest scorching, as if heat once poured down in a controlled descent. Could these be relics of spacecraft contact, weathered by time, but still echoing what once stood above them? And if so, why Antarctica? Why choose the coldest, harshest region on Earth as a base of operations, unless, at the time, it wasn't cold at all? Unless Antarctica was once a temperate cradle, A quiet outpost, far from the eyes of early life. Ideal for setting up a colony. Some theorists believe the planet was terraformed in stages, that intelligent beings altered the biosphere, shaped the magnetic grid, and even influenced DNA. If that's true, then perhaps Antarctica was their lab, their first console, their anchor point. And the remnants of their work now sleep beneath kilometers of ice, hidden behind the strange clauses of global treaties and the sealed vaults of religious institutions. The Vatican, for example, holds documents about sky beings and fallen angels, records that were buried, redacted, or filed under theological metaphor. But when cross-referenced with Sumerian tablets, Aboriginal legends, and early Egyptian texts, a pattern emerges. A presence descended, taught, ruled, and vanished. Could this presence have launched from Antarctica? Could it return there still? Some whistleblowers from aerospace circles have hinted at private scans showing artificial cavities beneath the ice. Cavities large enough to hold ships, circular structures with ringed platforms, and unusual metal fragments buried in sealed chambers. And one chilling coincidence repeats. These formations lie along major energy lines, magnetic fault intersections, and ancient ley lines that trace the globe. Is it possible the builders of these features knew something we don't? That they mapped the energy fields of the planet and built their landing zones accordingly? And what if the pyramids, stone circles, and mountain complexes scattered across continents are not isolated wonders, but relays, markers meant to guide or receive from a central node in Antarctica? Ancient astronaut theorists often point to artwork, wings, fire, stars, wheels, and glowing beings descending. But when these symbols are lined up by age and geography, Antarctica sits like a blank page in the middle, empty, undisturbed, off limits. Could that silence be artificial? Could it be enforced? Some researchers believe the ice is a shell, a shield laid over a place meant to be forgotten. But what happens when the shield thins? When radar pierces deeper, and structures come into view that resemble hangars, control chambers, or launch ramps? There are stories of sky doors carved into cliffs, massive frames with no known function. Were these entry points, exits, markers for celestial coordinates? Could the Earth once have hosted something far greater than we remember? And is Antarctica the last surviving piece of that memory? The deeper we dig, the more that ancient astronaut theory shifts from wild guesswork to organized suspicion. The glyphs found in Antarctica, still untranslated, bear shapes nearly identical to those seen on artifacts in Peru and Iraq, both places tied to legends of sky beings. Could a single culture have seeded the globe, then withdrawn into the cold? And could their ships have waited in silence, powered down beneath the very continent no nation is allowed to freely explore? Some even ask, are they still here? Not dead, but dormant, preserved in vaults beneath the frozen crust, waiting for a signal to awaken. Others believe they left long ago, but not without a plan, a return condition, a date, a code. Are we the descendants of their project? Or just the next species to find what they left behind? And if we reach too far, activate too much, or decode the wrong signal, do we invite a presence that never truly left? The sky may hold fewer answers than the ground beneath our feet. And in Antarctica, the ground is cracking. One more degree, one more shift, one more glimpse at the past before it reaches back. From the air, the lines are too sharp to ignore. Rising from the desolate ice near Antarctica's Ellsworth Mountains is a peak with angles far too perfect, edges far too straight, and proportions far too balanced to be dismissed as natural. At first glance, it appears like just another snow-covered ridge. But from a satellite view, something changes. It reveals a four-sided form with nearly symmetrical faces, aligned with cardinal directions in a way no random mountain should be. Could this be a pyramid? One carved or built long before the world knew continents. Some researchers call it the Pyramid of the South. Officials call it a coincidence of erosion. But erosion does not produce geometry. Wind does not etch equilateral triangles. And no known process sculpts a mountain into a monument so precise it rivals the Great Pyramid of Giza. Could Antarctica, hidden beneath layers of ancient frost, be home to one of the oldest and largest pyramids on Earth? And if so, who built it, and what lies inside? When researchers compared the structure's slopes to those of known pyramids in Egypt and Mesoamerica, the math was chillingly close. Angles of inclination matched within a few degrees. The faces aligned with magnetic north, and the location, isolated, obscured, and almost unreachable, echoed legends of sacred mountains where the sky met the underworld. Some early 20th century expeditions reported odd magnetic readings near the site. Others claimed their compasses spun uncontrollably. And one group, cut off by storms, described hearing low-frequency humming in the ice, like distant machines buried deep below. Were they experiencing natural sounds? Or something designed to remain hidden? Could the pyramid be a power node, a beacon, or a vault? Some theorists propose that ancient civilizations didn't just build pyramids for the dead. They built them to encode knowledge, stabilize energies, or serve as markers for celestial alignment. If that's true, what does this Antarctic pyramid point to, and why was it hidden? Is it possible that this was the master pyramid, the prototype, all others tried to copy? And if so, what secrets lie inside its frozen chambers? Ground-penetrating radar has shown strange voids beneath the ice, rectangular cavities and hollow sections not consistent with glacial flow. Could these be inner chambers, passageways, and has anyone reached them? Some say yes. A leaked satellite image from the late 1990 seconds showed excavation vehicles near the site. Days later, the area was declared restricted under an environmental protection clause. The image was scrubbed from most archives, but a few copies remain. Is this just caution or concealment? Could something have already been found and covered up? Certain angles of the pyramid show surface features that look like steps, weathered, broken, but regular. Could they be part of a terrace? A ceremonial staircase? Are we looking at the last visible structure of a once great city, its tallest peak surviving only because it pierced above the rising snow? Some legends speak of mountain temples where the first rulers came down. Others speak of a great white land where knowledge was frozen in time. Could both be describing this place? Could the Pyramid of the South be the capstone of a lost civilization? Or perhaps something older still, an arrival point built by beings who did not evolve here? Could it have served as a landing marker, a vault to protect something not meant for surface dwellers? And is that why every government avoids detailed mapping of this region? The idea of a hidden pyramid sounds like science fiction. But so did the idea of Antarctica having once been green, warm, and teeming with life. We now know that to be true. So how much more are we still missing beneath the ice? Could the Antarctic pyramid be part of a system, linked by tunnels, energy lines, or underground chambers, to the other anomalies we've seen in previous scans? And what if this is just the tip of something far bigger, a superstructure buried so deep that only its summit breaks through. Some whistleblowers claim the pyramid's angles mirror constellations visible only from that hemisphere thousands of years ago. Were the builders astronomers? Navigators? Could this be a map in stone, frozen in time, waiting for eyes advanced enough to read it? Others say the pyramid was built not to be seen, but to be sealed, that it contains something not dead, but dormant, a machine, a record, or a presence. Could it be that its perfect geometry is not for us, but for those who placed it? And what happens when we finally open it? The idea that ancient civilizations could construct on Antarctica isn't as wild as it once sounded. But this changes the scale. If the Pyramid of the South is real, it means our history is wrong by millions of years. It means intelligence came first, and ice came later. And it means we are standing on the rooftop of something vast, ancient, and watching. As the climate warms and ice sheets retreat, the edges of this pyramid will sharpen, the cracks will widen, and soon, what was once a rumor in the snow may rise again. Not as a myth, but as a monument. And when it does, it will not ask for an explanation. It will rewrite the story entirely. Centuries before Antarctica was mapped, the church was already guarding secrets that didn't fit the biblical timeline. Buried in dusty vaults and locked behind forbidden language were writings that hinted at a world before Adam. Not metaphor, not parable, but a first civilization, erased from scripture yet whispered in old theological debates. Could these texts, some burned, others sealed, hold clues to what now lies under Antarctica's ice? Certain early Christian fathers, like Origen and Clement of Alexandria, hinted at pre-Adamic races. The Book of Enoch, once considered scripture, describes beings who descended from the sky and shaped the earth, only to vanish in judgment. Why was it removed from canon? And more importantly, why did those who read it believe it described real history? Could those watchers, those giants and sky dwellers, have ruled not just Canaan, but the ancient continent we now call Antarctica? Some church documents describe a first earth, or former world, destroyed by fire, flood, or falling stars. The Genesis we know may not be the beginning, but a restart. And if so, what happened before? Was Antarctica part of that lost epoch, a paradise turned tomb, sealed by forces the church feared to name? Hidden scrolls found in the deserts of Egypt and caves of Qumran speak of otherworldly knowledge, cosmic architecture, and beings of light cast down to earth. Some fragments mention pillars buried in ice and gates frozen shut. Were these metaphors, or were the early scribes preserving a memory far older than the patriarchs? Could these records be describing the ruins beneath Antarctica, seen not by modern explorers, but by those who inherited knowledge from survivors of the last cycle? The Vatican holds one of the largest archives on Earth. Locked beneath St. Peter's Basilica are hundreds of thousands of manuscripts, most never read by the public. Among them are rumored to be texts from lost libraries, Alexandria, Constantinople, even Babylon, smuggled across centuries by scholars and monks. Could these include maps of lands now under ice? Or descriptions of cities erased by catastrophe? One document, known only by its code name, Liber Primus Terrae, the Book of the First Earth, was allegedly referenced in letters between medieval popes. It described a land of white stone and tall beings who taught mankind metallurgy, law, and geometry. Was it a myth, or was it a veiled reference to a civilization that predated the flood? And if such a place existed, why would the church hide it? Some say it's because it would shatter Genesis. Others believe it's more than that it would expose a lineage of knowledge passed down in secret, preserved not just in vaults, but in rituals, architecture, and bloodlines. Could the great cathedrals echo the proportions of temples now buried under polar ice? Could the rites of initiation mirror practices once performed in the southern sun, before the tilt of the earth changed the climate and buried the truth? Many early monasteries recorded visions, dreams of a great white land with shining walls and voices that came from the ice. Were these hallucinations or fractured memories passed down through prayer and trance? And what of the Jesuits? Some of their members were among the first to explore the Antarctic region, not as scientists, but as observers. Why were they sent? And what did they report back to Rome? There are rumors of a sealed vault within the Vatican that contains fragments of ancient Antarctic stone, carved, scorched, and etched with symbols not known to any culture. Are they authentic? Or is it all legend, crafted to cover something even older? Some scholars believe that parts of the Book of Revelation are coded references to Antarctica, descriptions of the abyss, the frozen pit, and the beings bound beneath the earth. Was John seeing the future? Or remembering the past? Could the apocalypse he envisioned be the return of a race the church once knew and feared? There is a chilling possibility that early church leaders discovered remnants of the first world and chose silence over disclosure, that they believed the beings who came before were not just powerful, but dangerous, and that the ice was not a natural event, but a divine seal. If true, this changes everything. It means Genesis is not the story of the first humans, but the second. It means the garden was not the start, but the recovery. And it means Antarctica is not just Earth's last frontier, it is its first memory. What if every ritual, every guarded text, every suppressed gospel is not just theology, but a map, a warning, a veil meant to delay discovery until mankind is ready, or doomed to repeat what came before? As new technologies scan the ice and dig through archives, some say the Vatican is watching closely, not out of curiosity, but out of fear. Because once the past is revealed, the church may not be able to contain it. The scrolls speak of a reckoning. The frozen continent hums beneath its crust. And soon, both may speak at once. When they do, the world may discover not just who ruled before, but who still waits to return. It's not the end of the world that frightens most historians. It's the idea that this one may not have been the first. Beneath Antarctica's thickest glaciers lies a question so old it was already ancient when the first pyramids rose. Not a city frozen in time, but a memory entombed in ice. A memory too dangerous to name, too real to ignore. Across layers of silence and secrecy, a picture begins to emerge. That before recorded history, before fossils and carbon dates, something else thrived on this planet. Not animals, not early humans, but a civilization, structured, advanced, deliberate, and then gone. If it existed, why was it erased? And why does its presence ripple through myths, magnetic scans, and forbidden texts like a buried pulse? The idea seems impossible until the pieces start fitting. From satellite imagery revealing symmetrical structures under ice, to ancient scrolls referencing beings who ruled before the breath of man, a pattern emerges. Could these be traces of the first world? Not the first known to us, but the true first? The one that came before Genesis, before even the dinosaurs? If so, what could they have been capable of? Some believe the ice was not their tomb, that what rests beneath is not just ruin, but intention, sealed not by chance, but by choice. Could it be that this world was hidden, not lost, and could the reason be fear? Several ancient cultures spoke of beings who came from the stars, brought knowledge, then vanished. Others hint at great wars, floods, and veils cast over the land. Were these poetic metaphors, or fragmented memories of an event so massive it reshaped the Earth's crust? If Antarctica was once the crown of that civilization, then the ice is not a natural disaster. It's a deliberate reset. A lock, and someone, something, turned the key before walking away. What if we are now approaching the threshold they left behind? With modern technology, we're drilling deeper, scanning farther, uncovering shapes that match no known geology. We find straight lines where nature makes none, buried chambers in places no human has stepped, and radiation signatures that match no meteor, no volcanic plume. Could this be the echo of machines too old to fit into our timeline? Could it be the silence of knowledge too large to survive the retelling? If the beings of the first world engineered energy, consciousness, or even life itself, what remains of that mastery beneath the ice? Some theorists believe that what we call evolution may not have been entirely natural, that the genetic codes of early life carry markers, patterns, that hint at intervention, not divine miracles, not blind chance, but design. Could the architects of Antarctica have edited biology as easily as they shaped stone? And if so, do we carry their legacy in our DNA? Or are we simply the inheritors of a world built for another species altogether? Religious texts across continents tell of watchers, fallen beings, ancient gods who gifted fire, law, and language. But behind the allegory lies something colder. Records of things that descended, interfered, and then disappeared. Did they leave behind warnings, vaults, or keys? Antarctica remains the only continent without an indigenous population, without permanent settlement, without wars, yet under strict control. Why? What lies so deep that every nation agreed to keep it undisturbed? And why are so many expeditions classified, redirected, or silenced? Could the melting ice be exposing truths the modern world is not prepared to face? Or worse, truths it already knows and cannot control? Some whisper of symbols carved into ancient Antarctic stone, matching those found in Egypt, Sumer, and South America. Could these be signatures of the same lost builders, traveling a world that, to them, was already fully mapped? Or are they warnings from a species that foresaw its end and encoded its knowledge in geometry, knowing it would outlast language? The most unsettling theory is this: that the civilization beneath Antarctica did not fall in isolation, that it triggered, or survived, a planetary catastrophe, one that erased most evidence, reset the biosphere, and allowed the rise of a new world atop its bones. Could we be walking on the ash of that first age? Are we repeating a cycle set in motion eons ago? And if the original engineers left guardians, programs, or triggers buried in the ice, what happens when we dig too deep? The melting is accelerating. Vaults once unreachable may soon crack open. Will they bring light, or release something forgotten for a reason? When the first door opens, what steps through? A lesson? A weapon? A voice? Or just silence, followed by memory? The world before the world may never have ended. It may have merely paused, waiting. And now, with every scan, every drill, every thawed edge, the pause grows shorter. Our history may be about to begin again, but this time, The first chapter might not be ours to write.